and welcome back to the Game Informer Show. Holy cow, we are here for the first ever episode of a GI Game Club focused around God of War. I hope you've all been playing the PS2 game. Nah, we're playing the new God of War.
I was playing the PS2.
Oh, damn it. We're diving in deep on the game's first half, roughly approximate first half. So if you have not played through God of War, which you should definitely play, I think we all like it here, but we'll dive in deep. If you've not played up until the point where you meet the character Mimir, he's in a tree. Stop watching or stop listening right now, please. But without further ado, I'm Ben Hansen. I'm still here. Kyle Hilliard is here.
Hi.
Ryan Shea.
Yes.
Serial Vasquez.
Hi.
Dan Tack.
It's good to be here, boy.
Holy cow. We have Dan Tack, that was a meme reference within 38 seconds. It's a new record for you. I'm very impressed.
Right off the bat.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. What we're doing is our lovely community has been playing alongside us and sent in thoughts on the game to podcast@gameinformer.com. Tons and tons and tons of great emails. If I don't get to everybody's, I'm very, very sorry, but I appreciate everybody that's playing, everybody that wrote in. Amazing response so far. Hey, it turns out people are crapping their pants over this game online and in our inbox.
That doesn't sound good. People should not do that.
Yeah. So here's a great one. Gary or Jerry, what is that?
It's Larry.
It's Jerry.
Jerry from Rathdom, Idaho writes in with a good kind of table setter. Hey, GI crew, before this God of War, what is your guys' experience with the series? Can you rank them? Maybe just experiences.
I can rank
So
them.
where are we all at? I think it's very helpful to go around the table and explain, what we think of the series before we dive in deep on this one.
Yeah.
Kyle?
I'll start. I love God of War. I've played every single game right when it came out, including the mobile game that came out on pre-iPhones.
Wow.
I will even go so far as defend the character of Kratos and say that he gets a bad rap. That everyone just kind of treats him as this super angry guy.
Yeah.
But I think that those games did a fantastic job of justifying his anger, and I've always really liked Kratos, and I think it's a great series, and I'm excited to play this one.
Well, I hope you have been excited. Ryan Shea.
Well, on the other end of the spectrum, I played about half of the first game.
The best part.
And that's it.
Wow. All right.
So I just found the combat extremely repetitive, and I didn't like the puzzles at all, so I kind of called it a day.
So you don't like video games?
I think so. I think that's the conclusion. I'm with you, Shay, where I watched a friend of mine play a lot of the first one, and I've never really liked the series. I know this is a weird note to start this amazing God of War discussion on.
Set the table.
I have always been skeptical. It always felt like a dopey parody of a mature video game to me, like sex and quick time events and blood and gore. It's like this is lame. But that said, I'm loving the hell out of the new one. So that's where I'm at.
I am as well.
Serial, where are you, man?
I've played 1 through 3, and I was never super into the series. I think I agree with Shades. After playing God of War and Ninja Gaiden, or Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden, I always felt like this was sort of it's really well produced, but the combat just isn't really there for me. And I played 3, and I was like, this looks really nice, but I don't know that I really enjoyed it. But I would say that this is probably my favorite one. But I also like 2.
This is I'm going to set it all up, and then you're going to knock it out of the park here, Tack. Realistically, what I'm adding, I feel like, is is that the studio? Maybe I'll have a little more dev insight than the average person for the cover story. Kyle, you're a great lore expert.
Sure.
Serial, you're a great combat expert because you love stylish action games. Shay's
here.
I'm just here.
I'm
in attendance.
Baby. He's got the beard. He's got Kratos' closest approximation of a beard. Dan Tack, what are you adding?
That's a great question. Why don't you tell me?
Dark Souls?
You had everybody else down. And no, I don't want any comparisons to this game to Dark Souls. That's anyone who's doing that is just plain wrong.
But sometimes when you fight, you have to move out of the way.
Yeah.
You roll a lot.
Honestly, those comparisons are ridiculous, and it drives into the whole whatever. You got social media, people are going to say anything and everything.
You've been seeing a lot
People
of that.
are very
though?
measured on social media.
There was some comments about that, and comparing everything to Dark Souls is a modern trend anyway.
Right.
It has no place here.
Well, which ones have you played?
So I played 1.
Just
That's
one?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So I'm not like a franchise. I'm not into it or anything. But I enjoyed the first one.
Okay.
It was sort of a trendsetter at the time, right? It was really bold and. Yeah, I liked that. So this is I'm not coming from a place where I'm like, oh man, I love the whole series,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we have a lot of notes here,
Okay,
guys.
great.
I've been laying this out on the table and getting terrified as I'm looking at this. Okay, as Sydney Cox writes in and says that they were 24 when the first game came out and it fit their mood perfectly, their tone perfectly. And now he just really appreciates that the game has been aging along with him. And this new God of War, now that he's more of an adult, he can appreciate it as an adult. Now he's got a family and kids. He says the new God of War has a real shot of replacing Super Metroid as his number one game of all time.
Man,
Wow.
I gotta just jump out there.
Here we go, Dan. Here we go.
I got I realize everyone is very in love with this game right now.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of hyperbole going on there. I think this game is good. I don't see the game of the generation, 10 out of 10, any of that stuff. I'm not seeing that currently.
Dan? I'm
Yes.
with you. Actually.
We still have to play half the game. So I would love to be surprised, and
Yes,
people tell me I will be.
I think the glowing red hot response from the reviews, and again, first half of the game is all we played. I
Correct.
feel like in the long view of history, it's going to come down a peg, but maybe not that much.
And I feel like I guess I should wait for the second episode to
Yes.
really dive into that. It's just like
Can't wait.
For right now, where we're at, I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
All right, that's what I want to get on the table.
That's fine.
There's for me one moment where I felt like, oh, this game is doing something really cool, and then from there it feels like it leveled off, it hit like a very high peak and then has leveled off,
Yeah.
which is this is sort of one of the issues that comes up with like game discussion is that sort of early reviewers are always surprised by how good a game is, and then sort of the subsequent discussion is always tempered by like, oh, this game's amazing, and everyone else's reaction is always sort of bouncing off of that. It's
Breath
like, well,
of the Wild.
yeah, like everyone just sort of wants to sort of flow against that to some degree. But and I think the issue with that is that I'm enjoying this game. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but it feels like anyone who's not sort of over the moon is seen as like, oh, you're like you must hate it or whatever. No, I still like it. It's just it's hard to sort of put it in that position.
And we're only halfway through the game. I cannot stress that enough, everybody.
So yeah, I want to talk about that a lot more after I finish it because.
Absolutely.
But let's get back into the questions.
Oh my gosh, we have so much. We just as an intro scatter shot. Let's keep throwing through these. Kyle from North Carolina has a very interesting observation.
Yes, I agree.
He's right over
there you
here.
go.
I'm from
Wait,
South Carolina. Completely
same
different
thing.
person.
Are there two Kyles on
Oh,
planet
Whoa!
is it Hilliard?
Yep. He says, did any of you turn on the captions before starting the game? If so, did you also find it hilarious that the very first caption in the game is Kratos, angry scream, in parentheses. Because that's the first thing he does when he cuts the tree down in the very beginning of the game. What a perfect way to start the new game about
That's
an
funny.
angry man god.
I didn't start it until I didn't put captions on until it kind of let me. I just started the game immediately, but I play every game with captions. But yeah,
Really?
I did. end up
I do
playing
too.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
I do too.
It's
Barely
funny,
ever use captions.
Angry Man God was actually the original name for God of War. before they changed
Master
it.
of Subtlety. There
For-
we
for the
go.
new one?
David Jaffe.
For either one.
Real quick. Kyle also writes in and he hits it, and I feel like we gotta hit it because it's funny because we had copies of the game we were playing before it came out.
Yeah.
And there is this bubbling, like I can see it scatter in my own notes of like, hey, he's saying boy a lot. And now it's just become like the number one reference for God of
I
War.
mean, it's pretty
2018.
ridiculous. It's a little overbearing.
Yeah. Well, Kyle writes an email and says, you want to read this one, Dan?
Sure.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Boy. Boy.
I could see that.
Boy.
Wow, people named
What a
Kyle sure
delight.
deliver great points.
Sincerely, though, can we each go around the table and do our closest approximation of the Kratos boy?
Oh God.
Boy.
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 Do not be sorry, boy.
Boy. I think Dan wins, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
good.
like, I think a couple of us had like a certain southern hint to his voice, which
Yeah.
isn't accurate.
Brian went a little Hank Hill, which I like. but
God damn it, boy.
Adam from Salem, New Hampshire says, yo, 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 boy. I'm loving the way this game approaches Norse myth. Santa Monica does such a great job of adapting the legends while still injecting something of their own to the character and environmental design. I read Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology last year on a whim, and boy, oh boy, am I glad I did. There's some interesting facets, such as Baldur's invulnerability. I can't imagine we'll talk about that again. And they're directly tied to stories about him. It's very cool to see him tied into the storyline. It seems like everyone's digging the mythology, the new world.
yeah.
Except like there's a funny one where someone wrote in saying that like they tried Googling a name to learn more about Norse mythology. Like, oh, I wonder if this is a real person. And there's a spoiler city. So, so if you have not
I mean,
finished
I
the
do-
game
I do
yet,
that too.
yeah, don't Google any name. Like it wasn't like an in-depth God of War Google. It was just
Norse
this
mythology.
one.
No, yeah, and I think
just one name from the game.
Right.
Done.
Although to
And I
be
think-
fair, you can go on any website at this point and maybe get God of War spoilers.
a lot of
Apparently,
folks,
YouTube is a minefield.
Oh yeah. There are a couple things that I saw in YouTube comments that I wish I didn't see, but nothing devastating yet. It's just kind of like, I figured, but nothing devastating so
I
far.
think even with having a cursory interest in Norse mythology before the game sort of tells you a lot just about some of the characters, which I don't want to get like knowing what the consequences of X and Y would be if X. It's.
I wonder, and I really hope that by the time I finish the game, there is something like nothing is more geeky and satisfying to me than if like Santa Monica took Kratos into account for Scandinavian mythology. Like if there's just like in the Poetic Edda, Prose Edda, or whatever, there's just like one hint of a vague line that somehow could connect to this game.
Curtis.
Like I think there's some very obvious things that can be extrapolated based on even where we are in the game, and I don't want to, because they could be spoilers. I don't want to talk about.
We'll
them.
get into speculation later on for sure. But do you sort of you were squinting there, Kyle? Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like backwards engineer Kratos into the real world mythology.
Like if at some point someone in Norse mythology said, "Oh, and I fought this one guy who happened to have an axe,"
right?
Or that's not something that
okay.
obvious, and then they sort of like jerry rig him into that role.
Yeah, historical retcons.
Yeah,
based on games.
I
It'd be
see
so
what you
cool
mean.
if they do it.
Because for the original series, like they did insert God of War into Greek mythology in a very overt way. But you're saying like the reverse almost.
Yeah, it's not important. We have a lot
He's
to
saying
get through
just
here, Kyle.
make him fit.
I got it, guys.
We're just saying make it fit. All right, Steve Barfoot, great name, great email. Says, hello, crew. It's my first official game club. Welcome, Steve Barfoot.
Boy.
And I'm excited to play along. How many callbacks have you guys seen to the previous trilogy that weren't explicitly mentioned? For example, right in the beginning of the game, after you cut down the tree, Kratos pauses to fix the wristband that had covered the markings from the Blades of Chaos, all while light beams over his head to show that he is a god. Other than slight conversations with Atreus, I haven't really noticed too much.
The name of the game is God of War.
There's one I wrote down. Atreus mentions the Fates.
Yes.
And Kratos says no good comes from them. And that's because you killed them in God of War 2.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. And help me out, Kyle, since you know those old games so well. We'll dive into the specifics of this bit later, but does Kratos meet Aesop in the original trilogy?
Who's Aesop?
Like Aesop's Fables?
I don't think so.
Because like in the boat, when he's telling the stories, he's like, I knew a dude once, and he told me a story about a rabbit.
I don't think so. I think he just knows those stories.
God, yeah.
Just
I don't
on
think
his own.
Aesop is a Greek god either.
Yeah, I don't
No,
think
but he's
so.
like, he's from ancient Greece. I looked it up because I'm like, does that fit? And it's like 600 years BC, I guess, for Aesop.
I don't remember him meeting that character.
Okay,
Yeah.
but there is this little stuff. I love how subtle it is. Just stuff like, Kratos will say like, I told you there are no such thing as good gods, Atreus. Like little notes like that. He's angry at the concept of worshiping gods whatsoever. But it's pretty subtle. I don't feel out of the loop not having played those games. Like I watched like a story recap and stuff, but nothing over the top that I've noticed.
I do appreciate the frequent, like, do not put your faith in the gods, Atreus. Like, understand that these people are assholes and they are really bad. And I'm not going to go into why yet, but like, do not put your faith in these people, which I really appreciate, just having the weight of everything that he went through for the first, 5 God of War games. Like the gods constantly screwed him over. And so for him to just have that lingering, not even anger, just kind of like, those guys suck, Atreus. Like they really suck,
Our cabin's the best place on earth. We never have to leave it. Let's just never worry about anything beyond
So like
it.
I as a fan of the original series, like it has a little bit more weight to it, but it is like you can totally just understand why he feels that way.
Right. Most of the stuff even if you haven't played God of War, most of the stuff you've absorbed through osmosis of like, here's Kratos, he's this really strong guy. As long as you know that he fought gods before, I think you should be okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew Outzen says, I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen much of the Norse gods so far in the first half. Pretty much the only interaction we had with them is the fight against Baldur near the beginning of the game, which we'll talk about in a bit. I have mixed feelings of this one-on-one of this. On one hand, I want to see more of their interpretation of Odin and Thor and all the other gods, but on the other hand, not being super focused on them gives a lot of time to spend developing Kratos and Atreus, and the writing for those two characters and the dynamic has been so wonderful so far. That is a huge takeaway.
Okay.
Yeah. So Dan Tack.
I'm positive that we're going to see a lot more of the gods in the second half.
I don't think so. I
have never been so sure of anything.
What a bold guess.
Well, I mean, just saying.
We literally saw Thor right as we all shut down the game.
I assume that's it.
He said he was Thor.
Who's the other one? Who was the other guy with him?
It was Thor and Baldur.
No, there were 3.
Oh, there were 3?
Yeah, I assumed it was like Thor and Loki, but I didn't hear a name.
I did not get that
anywhere.
impression at all. I thought that it was 2 others.
I thought it was Thor and Loki and Baldur. Like, I didn't even think that was...
I think the fact that we all came away with that impression kind of...
not come away
at some
with
point,
that impression.
they do say Thor or something, or Mimir says Thor.
Mimir is talking about Odin.
Okay.
And they talk about, one of them says, we're brothers or something. I don't know. I paused and I was like, oh, cool, that's Thor's character model right there. But I don't know, maybe I was wrong.
I think the fact that we all left with that
I don't think that
impression,
was Thor at all. I think that was 2 other characters.
Okay.
Dan, you cannot reveal who you think those characters are.
I'm not. We'll do that in the speculation.
It's embargoed until the next
Okay, good.
In the speculation phase. Anyway.
Yeah, I think Andrew has a great point here. I think I didn't expect it. for them to be so subtle with the gods, but I feel like it works out so well because I love going into this game with just a sense of mystery and slowly, and I think really in a satisfying way, uncovering this Norse mythology and the world overall. And like, I understand with the camera technique, it's tough to do this, but if this was last generation, 2 generations ago, like they would have cut to a scene of them, like all the gods partying at a table, drinking mead, like we've got to kill Kratos. And just to not have any of that and be completely in the dark as to this bigger world is awesome.
I don't know that they would, because God of War 2, they really held back on the pantheon of the gods until the very end.
Really?
And they really, like, they showed Hades for the first time in the background of the end cutscene of God of War 2. So I think they've always been pretty good about like keeping it close to the chest, you know.
But don't you feel like that pays off just for the nice slow build?
Yeah, absolutely, for
I don't know.
sure. Yeah.
I'm not particularly enjoying the slow build. Like I'm going a lot of places, seeing a lot of crap. Like
Excuse me, sir?
who cares about dark elves? Like really, come on.
You don't care about those Geonosians?
I
Star Wars?
I was like, yeah.
There are interesting encounters, but in terms of the lore, it's just like, oh, these guys are sort of like bugs in the
I'm actually kind of the other way around. I like the story behind it. I'm curious to see like what comes of that, because like there was that thing of like you made the wrong decision or whatever.
Well, we're all curious to see what comes of it, but I'm just saying like.
You seemed like you weren't curious about it at all.
I'm with Shay though. Like the Alfheim stuff, and there were a couple emails, people who really like that section here.
Okay.
This is when you're like
we're skipping ahead.
on the bridge, kind of like taking out all those.
I think just going to Alfheim and the lore surrounding
Alfheim.
Alfheim alone, I loved it a lot because it's like, all right, I'd imagine what the elves are going to look like, and even just the light twist going in there of like Kratos kind of implying like, hey, we're just seeing the end of this war.
All right.
Like we don't know what the hell happened.
That's fair.
It could be like we're all rooting for the light elves, but the dark elves might know exactly what's going on here, and maybe the light elves really had it coming.
That's fair. I think I just didn't like that part because of all the crystal stuff.
You didn't like the crystal
like
stuff.
the crystal stuff.
We have 17 emails of people loving the crystal stuff, demanding Dan shut down his mic.
What specifically is the crystal stuff? I mean,
moving the crystal,
grabbing the crystal, moving, like hauling it, putting it down.
It's
shooting
true.
the
Out of
thing,
all the gameplay
grabbing
so
the
far,
crystal.
that's the one section I'm like, I feel like this is a little bit long. And other than that, I feel like it's so incredibly well paced, and that wasn't unbearable by any means.
I'm
That's
not
the only
saying it's
time
unbearable.
I
I'm
hear
just
you.
saying I didn't love it.
I like Atreus, who would be like, "What are you gonna carry that thing all over the place?"
Yeah,
Right, for sure.
I will say, like, as much as I enjoy those encounters, I like sort of that section's environmental variety in terms of like, oh, now you're not in the snow anymore. It's not like the super mountainous Skyrim-esque kind of thing. But in terms of like, it felt like a sort of distraction in terms of I want to learn more about sort of the gods and sort of the through line, the main through line here.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're kind of pivoting away from that, which it wasn't terrible. It's just, it felt like, all right, when are we going to get back to the sort of the meat of the story?
I still feel like if the meat of the story is the relationship between Kratos and Atreus, I feel like there's plenty of interesting stuff in Helheim that still, lends to that meat, as people say. Nick Olson says, I think the most surprising thing about the story so far is how little they've delved into Kratos' past, other than characters saying, I know what you are, and such. I wonder if the back half of the game will dive into how Kratos went from being impaled by the blades of Olympus to married to widowed with a kid. It seems like they've actively avoided it, however. I'm sure things will change once Atreus inevitably finds out that his dad is a god.
I'm sure there's something called
Yeah,
foreshadowing.
I can't imagine that game ends without sort of some like, at least some good semblance of like, this is what happens between the years, and this is, which I think will be part of when they get into the mother's backstory. I imagine, like, I have to imagine that is sort of the crux of like
It's
the third
incredibly
act.
deliberate, hiding the mother's story completely through this.
true.
I have to assume that that's part of the second.
Well, I mean, they've said stuff like her family was murdered. The blacksmiths got her the axe. She was a warrior.
Right.
And you heard her voice in the light.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of feel like I know her a little bit, and also the way the game is structured, where it's a single shot. Like I don't think we're going to see flashbacks.
Right.
And
well, but
No
with so much
flashbacks.
mystical stuff going on.
But I think
mean,
I think there are probably clever ways to do it to let us get a sense of who she was.
Yeah, like
doing
the light thing almost
Yeah.
gave us that, so like we could see that a little bit longer later on in the game.
Yeah, and her name's Faye, which classic
That's
reference
the
to
thing
EA,
we
Electronic
have.
Arts'
Yeah, of course.
indie release recently. Yeah, but just like, I mean, that's the most we maybe know is from the crazy crystal scene where he's in there, and it's basically the nightmare dream sequence from Mass Effect 3 where it's the black and white world and he's running around.
mixed with the
follows-
hyperbolic time
Immediately
chamber.
what I thought.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's exactly
And I
that.
love that scene when he came out and he's like, I was only gone for a moment, and it's like just piles of bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
and
Atreus
Atreus really let
has
him have
murdered
it.
everyone.
which
Yes.
reminds
emails.
me specifically of a scene from the Half-Life 2. That same
Oh, yeah?
thing sort of happens, and I love that when you as the player get to experience time displacement like firsthand, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, to us, it really truly was only a moment. But yeah, I like when I don't see it in games a lot, but Half-Life 2 did it really well and God of War did it really well.
Frank Piff writes in, and subject line of the email was the moment. The subject line was Atreus plays Paul Bunyan. His favorite moment was the moment where Kratos realizes he was gone much longer than he thought. You see Atreus pulling the axe out of a dark elf. As you scan the screen, you see piles of dead elves. This also led to some real emotional shifts in the storytelling. Tyler from Virginia says, after Atreus pulls Kratos from the light in Alfheim, Atreus is yelling at him about how he left him, took forever, and Kratos just seems confused. It was a big emotional moment, but after it was over and he took control over Kratos, Atreus' tone became like nothing ever happened. And he's like, oh, we can go this way, Dad. And he's wondering if we ever felt those weird tonal shifts. I guess that one didn't strike me.
I feel
I did
like
not.
maybe not specific to that moment, but I feel like I have felt this weird tonal clash the entire game of just here's this very somber, serious, like an attempt to be sort of like not necessarily like The Last of Us, but like embody that tone of like we want to tell a more mature story. But then like the first thing you do, like the first sort of action you take is juggle a guy in the air and perform like a 6-hit combo. And like it feels more out of place than it did in the previous games. And I'm not saying like it's not good. It's just it feels like they want to have their cake and eat it too. Of like we want to make this bombastic, very intricate combat game with upgrades and systems and skill trees. But then also we want to tell a very mature story that feels sort of like austere and very toned down.
I feel like the remarkable thing, most remarkable maybe about this entire first half of the game that I've experienced so far is that exactly thing, that thing where it is so gamey, but I feel like they are having their cake and they are eating it too, where the emotional beats still all work, but overall it's like, this game is gamey as hell. Maybe it's just having like a nice, well-designed, relatively linear-ish sequences in there, but just having that kind of like classic style gameplay. You could say Metroidvania, you could say anything you want, combined with such powerful storytelling. Like that's the crazy achievement of this game, is how gamey it is, yet how it still lands every punch that it's taken, for me at least.
I don't think that it like it sort of breaks the game, but I think that it just feels strange to me, like the sort of like the I'm Kratos, I'm a god, like I am sort of holding back my strength or whatever, but also I could use like a different colored piece of armor that's yellow and gives me +4 stats.
But they reference that, like Kratos even specifically calls out when he's like, all I'm doing these side quests for is to make myself stronger so I can go put these ashes on the goddamn mountain more. Like they like go out of their way to explain.
Yeah,
I feel like the dwarves also play into that, where they're specifically upgrading the armor in a way like I'm with Hanson, where it feels natural to me. Yeah. And maybe it's because I'm not as good at the combat as you. I'm not juggling people. I'm just like hacking my axe.
How do you juggle? We'll get into it. There's a lot.
You got to press R2.
R2?
I press it sometimes after I press R1 a bunch.
Where do you find these buttons? Dylan from Raleigh writes in. He says, what's up with these sweet moments between father and son being ruined by monsters? That's true. There's a lot of that.
That's the whole game.
And then
life.
He says he also really loves how the witch calls Kratos out on his when he had Atreus to try to kill that innocent boar. Yeah. I enjoyed how not everyone was so afraid of Kratos in this world. That was a very nice moment of just, hey, let's just, I don't know, use this piece of crap for target practice. And the witch is like, hey, what the hell? This is my buddy. Like, you cannot just do that. He's the last of his kind.
To be fair, he had no idea whose buddy that boar was.
It's important that Atreus gets his training, though, too. So, I think
so you're for it. You're for this.
Why not?
Really?
On that note, I really like there's an early fight where Kratos like probably catches on fire. Maybe Serial didn't because he's amazing at this game. But I caught on fire and I was rolling around and Atreus is like, Dad, you're on fire! And Kratos is like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Just fire your arrows. It'll be okay.
I don't know where you got this impression that I'm like amazing at the combat or
I
whatever.
watched you play fighting games.
I thought he was going to say he didn't know how you could catch
that
on
doesn't
fire.
translate to every combat system known to
Serial's
man.
the best video game player I've ever
had. I'm glad we finally acknowledged it.
I didn't know why you have to play with your sticks and just bang on the buttons loudly as you're playing this God of War.
It's the only way to play.
He said, whoa, you're on fire right now, is exactly what he said.
And not in an NBA Jam fashion. I feel like...
See, that's the tonal discord. It's just like sometimes it just becomes the NBA Jam announcer.
I love that kind of stuff. Like I love
me too.
Atreus yelling out. Even just he's been surprisingly helpful because I'm an idiot when it comes to playing this game. The complete opposite of the god known as Serial over here, right? Or like
God of War.
Genuinely, I'll take a couple swings before Kratos will be like, Dad, your axe isn't working. He's like, that is genuinely helpful information. I'm too stupid to realize that.
He also does serve as like a good reminder of like after a fight, if you didn't use them at all, he's like, Dad, I can throw arrows, by the way.
Throw it.
I mean, he's actually incredibly powerful.
Yeah, he's
really
awesome.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's ridiculous. Like, it feel like towards the back half of this play session is when I finally started spamming that square button
he's-
more. It's like,
he's
why
just
am I
like-
just doing this at all
Seriously,
times?
he's like cheating. He gets so good.
Yeah.
Do Spartan Rage and just like jam on the R1 and square at the same time.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
That's good jamming.
It's great.
Anthony Argan from Malvern, Pennsylvania says, so it turns out carrying a pig underneath a giant turtle with a tree on its back wasn't the first time I was going to be surprised with this game. From the beautiful and colorful environments to the dialogue fleshing out a father and son's relationship, this game has been a well-paced, story-driven action masterpiece. Can someone tell Cory Barlog that my PS4 is not an airplane and to kindly ask his game to stop trying to take flight with it? I've never heard it louder, and I'm playing on a PS4 Pro.
Yeah. I had to use headphones for that reason.
Really?
'Cause it was-
Wow.
even my Pro was like so loud. But maybe it's because I was running it in performance mode or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's odd.
I saw an article today that was like, "Yep, it makes it sound like a jet engine," and that's the comparison I have drawn for my regular PS4. So I'm surprised it's doing it for the Pro as well.
Yeah, I guess I have headphones on, but I haven't noticed it too much either.
I'm not playing with headphones, and I haven't noticed it.
Huh. I think we should dive into this pig stuff a little bit more. Like
Okay,
that was a
great.
very confusing thing when I was visiting the game studio for the cover story. You know, you're walking by monitors and stuff, people working on the game. And one of the few things that I saw that I could not explain was someone was playing that section where Kratos is just carrying a pig. And so in my mind, I'm like, is this just a wacky side quest in the new God of War? Like, what the hell could this possibly work? And it turns out it's a touching little moment within the context of the main storyline. But when that turtle stands up, that was maybe the first, well, other than the fight with Baldur, which we're getting to in a little bit here, that was the first real impact moment of the game. It's like, oh, this world, I'm so excited to see more. I'm so excited to explore.
That and the
Crazy
moment with the
mythology.
was that before or after the world beast kind of looks you in the eye?
Oh,
That was
God.
before.
That's no, is it? No, I think it's after.
It might
World
be
Beast is
after.
really early.
Yeah.
Because I think those are the two moments where it felt notably different from other games because of sort of like the tracking camera.
Wait, are you talking about the World Serpent?
Yeah.
Oh, the World Serpent, yeah.
The pigs before that, because after that you get in the boat from the witch's house.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're
Okay.
totally right. Yeah, absolutely. Seeing that turtle is so cool. What do you think about the witch character in general?
I think she's cool.
Good.
I like that she instantly kind of recognized that Kratos was something special.
I will say I thought she was Mimir when I first met her.
Oh, really?
I'm like, okay, so Joe told us until we met Mimir. Should I wait until she reveals that's her name, or should I just stop now, assuming this is Mimir?
That would be funny if you stopped there.
Yeah,
That was actually a weird thing of just it's very specific to us, where I was like, oh God, please don't be Mimir. Okay, thank God, I can keep going. You're not Mimir, are you? Okay, you're Brock. Okay, good.
Let's keep it rolling. The witch, I do love that, yeah, she knows exactly what Kratos is like. And I love just her subtle, well, relatively subtle hints of like, hey, like the gods hate outsiders. Like these people are effed up and I have a weird history with them that I'm sure we'll go into in the future and whatnot. But you don't know what you're in for here, weirdo.
Yeah.
Go back home, I think is her message
You
overall.
weirdo.
Do you like
That
her
was a weird
performance,
line.
Dan?
I don't know. Listening to you guys talk about how extremely captivated you are with the story is
Yeah.
blowing my mind because it's not doing it for me.
Really?
Well,
Not
Dan
yet.
doesn't have a heart and
I guess not.
doesn't care about
It's like some
children.
beast from Norse mythology.
I guess,
Sorry, we're
yeah.
not having to read through like hours of online stuff for Bloodborne.
Oh, Bloodborne slave! Mr. Nintendo going after Bloodborne.
We're not- this is the game club for God of War, not Bloodborne.
Console Wars are back, baby.
Except they're both PS4 games.
Whatever. But while I get to it real quick here, Edgar Vasquez, friend of the show, Serial's lovely brother,
Brother of the show.
handsome bloke, brother of the show, says one of his favorite moments is meeting the Witch of the Woods. Not sure how to put it exactly, but the way she's modeled, especially her face, animated and voiced, made her seem very real to me. I haven't gotten that sense from anything else before.
Are you saying you fell in love? Are you
He said, yeah, I am now officially married to the Witch of the Woods.
looked her up
in
on
the new God of War.
OkCupid, and I think we really hit it off.
I've noticed this small discrepancy, maybe talking about tone jumping all over the place a little bit. Her performance is the only one that's really bothered me so far, where I feel like during cinematics, she does a great job, but like her gameplay dialogue of like, over here, Kratos, it just feels a little more wooden, just a little bit. Not saying
pick
she
up on
phoned it
that.
in, but
Who's
look, I'm sensitive. to it.
Brock, who's the other dwarf?
Oh,
Nobody remembers.
That
I
guy.
don't remember his name.
Nobody
He's like
remembers.
Sedwin or
His
something.
performance
isn't it?
seems almost too casual sometimes. He's a little too.
He's a little like, we brought sort of modern comical writing
Yeah.
into this character.
He's
Yeah.
way cooler than the other one.
Yeah, I like him.
I
It's
like
just
Brock,
like
yeah.
it's
I like
just
them both.
again part
Yeah.
of sort of like that tone of like, okay, this is just kind of this feels kind of Frankenstein together in a lot of ways.
But I like that. Going against Kratos, I really love those like weird, so almost borderline silly characters. having to
Borderline
deal with-
silly?
Yeah, yeah.
They're
So-
downright
I like
silly.
it when people
Some
give
they're
Kratos
silly.
shit. Like that's yes, I definitely agree with that.
They are silly, but Norse mythology includes many silly characters doing silly things.
Dan, are you shaming us for our lack of understanding of Norse mythology?
I am not.
Okay.
I've seen like 3 Marvel movies, dude. I'm okay.
Yeah,
I watched
he's
Thor
up. All right.
Ragnarok.
I saw Thor.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I
did
took a
mention
class in
Ragnarok.
college about it.
All right.
They did, where she says she wishes that she wasn't worried about it. The witch made some reference to Ragnarok in that way, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out like a great movie, so I don't know why she was worried.
Hey.
It's Brock and Sindri, I believe.
Sindri.
We got a couple emails about them. Jeremiah Erickson says,
okay.
I love the interactions between Bronk and Atreus as well. Bronk's a little bit off, but the effing gratitude moment is one of the best in the game so
I have
far.
that. Yeah, I have that written down.
What'd you write down exactly?
Just that he named his animal fucking gratitude.
Yeah.
That was funny.
They are sort of immersion breaking for me.
Oh, yeah, they're too wacky?
No, not that they're too wacky. I like the wackiness. It's just that everywhere you go, they just show up.
Yeah,
They talk
really
about that, though. They
I
joke
know they
around
talk.
about
I
it.
don't care if it's explained in the universe or anything. It's just like,
that's the
hey,
thing, yeah.
I don't have to go back home because guess what? He's always right in front of me, just waiting to work on my axe. Okay,
I
cool.
can see that. From a gameplay perspective, it's great.
It
but-
didn't,
get it.
it didn't
I
affect
get it.
as much as it did Dan, but I will say, like, just the fact that they bring something up is like, oh yeah, I can teleport. Like, explaining it and acknowledging it doesn't necessarily make it a good explanation. For
I
certain
hear ya.
stuff.
Because early on, the first time when you get like Brock's workshop set up or whatever, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, I'll come back here to do all my stuff, and then it's just like, I'll never have to do this again, because they're always going to be in front of me,
Yeah.
ready to work on my crap.
But I assumed there's going to be a weird thing where it's like, okay, they're saving the brother that's constantly referenced. He's going to be like an Asgard. So in theory, if you're going there later in the game, right, then you'll see him. But I didn't expect it to like alternate. But I think that's so much fun. And the weird rivalry for like upgrade mechanics is something I
right.
don't think I've ever
I think
seen
it's
in the
fun.
game, where it's like, oh, what kind of hatchet job did you do? Okay, looks like you did an okay job. You got to look at this one.
I like the characters. In fact, I think those two are some of my more favorite characters
Sure.
in
Yeah.
the game.
I also
But,
think
just the setup, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it would have been cool if that sort of manifested itself in the game, even of just like, hey, you can either your 2 skill trees for this axe are based on the 2 dwarves of like whose upgrades do you like more. Like if you upgraded the axe in a certain way depending on who was working on it. But I imagine they meant for them to be more interchangeable of just upgrade your thing. We have multiple characters who can help you.
I was actually
Yes.
wondering, like, when you got that offering of tier or whatever it is, if it mattered who you gave that to.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, the what's it called? The crystallized flame or whatever?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Because
Maybe.
I brought it to Sindri and he did something for me. I forget what it was, but like I was hoping that like it would be like, oh, do you want to give it to him or do you want to give it to Brock?
Yeah.
But I don't think it.
Did you guys
Yeah, I don't
learn
think
why
it
Sindri is such a germaphobe? Did you get that conversation?
No, someone referenced it in the emails, but
Basically, he like a witch told him what bacteria is basically,
Yeah.
and he's like everything is covered in little beasties, which I
Yeah.
just thought was so funny. I love that idea of being aware of bacteria and
Yeah.
that's a legitimate thing, but him having this like magical context attached to it. It's very
oh, that's
strange.
great. I loved Jeremiah mentions interactions between Brock and Atreus, and even Sindri and Atreus. I am a sucker. I don't know what it is, but when you go to like Atreus's upgrade screen and they're all like, "Oh, Master Atreus," they're all like so nice to him. For some reason, that is making me emotional. Like that alone, and, people being nice to Atreus. Just Atreus's poor life. He's desperate to like communicate with anybody. He's been locked up in this cabin. Even him, like desperate and to communicate with the World Serpent and like feeling bad for not being able to understand the World Serpent. Like that crap kills me.
Yeah.
Dan,
I'm not getting that at all.
Wow,
I think Atreus is. There's something weird, something totally off about him. Like just being able to read all these kinds of runes, just like boom. Like he's also a massive slayer.
you're saying
He's
that
like
boy
10
ain't right?
I'm saying there's something we don't know that will come up later.
I think you're right.
That's what
I
they're
think he's
very
half
heavily
god.
hinting at.
Yeah. I
Well,
think so.
yeah, isn't that we can just
I know.
assume that? Right?
That's the joke. Kyle.
Oh,
He was,
okay.
by the way, Kyle, just to help out, his previous intern, Michael Leary, friend of the show, wrote in saying how
Oh.
much he loved the blacksmiths and the germaphobe discussion in particular.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just quickly on Atreus. I appreciate that he's just like a good kid who like listens to his dad. So often in video games, the kids are like obnoxious, and I just like that he listens to his dad and he's very polite and he's nice. He's like he reminds me of Gohan.
Aw.
Honestly,
Good
I
kid.
think about Vegeta and Trunks a lot with this game.
Well, Gohan specifically because he's the
world.
scholar is kind of why I
Right.
think Gohan.
Wait, Atreus is a scholar?
Yeah, he can
Without
read.
Atreus, you would not be able to progress in the game.
He
because
knows the
can
history
read-
of the world. He can read.
Well,
he's
maybe he's like a
runes.
relative idiot compared to the rest of the world. Just
The
because
runes,
Kratos
boy.
is like a effing zero in terms of knowledge
Hey
of
man,
Norse
in a world of
mythology.
idiots, that's what idiocracy was
Yeah,
about. You
that's
know?
true.
I just like that it's a companion that you don't have to constantly say. Like, there's a
Yeah.
little bit of that, but he's very helpful and he's not annoying, and that's like
it's-
the mark of a good companion.
It's a small amount of saving enough where like I'm eager to save him because I don't want him to. Be
Yeah.
like when he was taken away for you briefly. like, and you had to get to him, and you went to Spartan. Like, I was pissed.
At the same time, though, he's at least as far as gameplay goes. I'm sure there will be a story part of this, but gameplay wise, he's invulnerable.
Yes,
he cannot be killed. He cannot be harmed.
You don't necessarily feel like Kratos' fear for his son in the combat at all, which is like maybe like it's more of a thematic issue. Like I think I would be frustrated if you had to like babysit him all the time, but at the same time, it's like I don't see what your problem with not bringing this kid. He seems pretty capable to me.
Prove me wrong, Atreus. Prove me wrong.
That's actually one of my favorite lines is when he says like, "Prove me wrong," and he just goes, "Yes, sir."
Yeah,
he's a good kid.
He's a damn good kid. What do you think about his big mopey scene, where remember where he's like, he's trying to has to let a rope down or something for Kratos, and Kratos is like yelling at him like, "Move on!" It's after the weird interactions with the human, where the
cannibals.
Like on top
it's like the first time he murders somebody, and he's kind of like, like sulking about it.
He gets used to. He takes to it like a duck to water, though. He's got no problem slaughtering armies after that.
I like that whole sequence, and I thought it was affecting. To watch him kind of realize it's like, well, this is what we're doing. I have to kill here.
And then it doesn't really kick back into action until Kratos is like, "Do you want to go back home, boy?"
Yeah.
Like, no. We're good. Please don't make me go back to that super boring cabin. There's like 2 colors in there. It sucks.
It was kind of nice.
It actually was.
Hey man,
hidden spot underneath the floorboards.
That'd be like what, $1,500 a month in Minneapolis?
Easily.
Hell yeah.
You're gonna double that.
You don't have to pay for heating though. So
That's true.
nice.
I really got a direct satisfaction out of it though. Much like seeing Nathan Drake's house in Uncharted 4. Like the first time I got to go in that cabin, it's like, all right, taking my time, looking at the little pot, how they cook all this stuff, what's on their shelves.
I'd like to see Kratos cook.
Yeah.
That should be a game.
I will add salt to make it taste better.
Cooking with Kratos. I'd play it.
Make it, Santa Monica. Jamie from Wisconsin says, "Hey, GI crew. Gotta say, one of my favorite things about the game so far is the subtle humor that keeps popping up. Especially the moment when you arrive where the original demo that was shown at E3 took place. Entering the area, you expect the same moment to kick in and fight to begin, but to our surprise, no fighting. An ogre, just a few wolves. Then the funny reference of Kratos talking to Atreus and mentioning how he's expecting a much bigger fight. Has there been any other subtle funny moments that snuck up on you?"
I don't know if they were subtle. The funny moments have pretty much been
I have a few, yeah.
Yeah, what do you got?
There was early on, there was a very, very good are we there yet moment where he kept saying like, well, how long is it going to take us? Kratos is like, as long as it takes us. Well, where do we go? This direction. How long is it going to be? And Kratos is like, I don't know. And it very much reminded me of like that are we there yet moment.
Yeah.
And then also I don't know if you guys have encountered that horn.
Oh yeah.
There's that horn, and Atreus wants to blow into the horn, and Kratos is like, we don't know what it does. And he's like, you pull every lever you see. Like, why are you waiting to do this one? Like,
I've done those
Yeah.
before.
Call him out on the gameplay. Yeah, throwing the gameplay.
And
under
I
the
also
bus.
like when you have to break the, I don't know what you call them, but he has to like break 3 at a time of those like glowing things.
The runes.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the gameplay of the first half of God of War?
No, there's a moment, like a little bit, like when you're fighting the elves, and there's like 6 or 7 of these like the plants that you have to break, and there's these like, and then the puzzle is you have to figure out how to
those were annoying.
break 3 at a time.
Yeah, the weird juicy Elfheim plants.
And like it took me a while to figure out how to do it, and Atreus was like, "Dad, you're not going to be able to do this.
Yes.
Like, let's move on." And I love, and especially with the weight of the rest of the series, as I have of me always being by myself to solve puzzles in the past and taking my time to solve these puzzles at Kratos, to have this moment where the son is like, "Dad, you can't figure this out. What are you doing here?" And Kratos is being like, "Look, I got this. I have pushed plenty of boxes in my life. I can figure this out."
But the confusing thing is that he was saying like, you can't do it, and I think I ended up doing it.
You do it.
You do.
That's the area with the hive, and you have to do it to continue.
Right.
That's why, I like that you did get a chance to be like, "Look, Atreus, I know how to do this." And Atreus was very visibly disappointed that he was like, that you figured it out, which I really appreciated.
Yeah. Nick Olson, real quick, Shay. Nick Olson brings up the point you brought up earlier, Kyle, about when Kratos is carrying one of the blue elf crystals around in a holder, and Atreus says, "Ugh, are you going to carry that thing everywhere?" And Kratos goes, "Maybe I will."
And it turns out you will.
Oh, you will. You will. What do you have a moment there,
Just
Shay?
overall, I like how, like, I know this is probably just a symptom of him being kind of an father, but I like just how short he is with Atreus sometimes, and how short he is with other people. Like, I think it was a conversation with Brock one time where he's like, he was asking him questions, and Kratos just like, yes.
Dude, he's got
and
no
they
time
asked
for
another one,
bullshit.
he's like, yes. And he's like, is yes all you're going to say? Yes.
Right. He has like shades of Drax, I feel like, from Guardians of the Galaxy, like that level of humor every once in a while. One of my favorite moments also relates to Marvel, strangely enough. It's Sindri, and I think he's trying to explain how he's in Elfheim, because like, what the hell? We have the only way to get here with the Bifrost.
Yes.
How did you do this? And it's some reference where it's referencing Thor, which is confusing, where he goes like, to the novice, this must seem like magic, but to us, all right, it's magic. You happy now? It's just like, okay, yeah, we know that you're thinking of that dumb line from Thor. No big deal there.
There was one more that I liked where it was like I was doing side quests and there's this underwater, this like submerged water wheel, and Atreus goes, "Oh, it's a water wheel. Oh, I guess more like an underwater wheel." And Kratos just goes, "Oh." He just grunts, and Atreus goes, "Did you laugh?" And Kratos just goes, "No, I do not laugh."
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
Guy, he's mean.
He's a great guy.
Not a good
He's
dad
loving, though.
He's a no good dad. Okay, now we're getting to it. This is a whole page.
All right,
the
here we
number
go.
one thing
Here we
referenced
go.
in all these emails.
Oh, really?
It has to be...
Baldur?
Yeah, there we go. Matt
God,
McKenna
what a-
writes in from Long Island and says, can we please discuss, enough with the funny moments, can we please discuss just how awesome the Stranger boss fight is? Probably one of my favorite boss fights in the whole series, one of the coolest superhero-style fights in a video game. Sending him flying through trees and boulders, and vice versa is so damn cool. It's the second boss fight in the game, too.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm sorry. There seems to be a wind breathing on these microphones.
Yeah.
Do you want me to get through this hype first, Dan,
Get
or do
through
you
the
want
hype
to take
first.
a crap on a microphone
Let's
right
get through
now?
the hype. Get through the hype, and then we'll.
Oh my gosh, here we go. Jacob G says, hey y'all, the game's opening is a truly excellent subversion of expectations. After the Hydra, Colossus of Rhodes, etc., we're trained to expect a massive first level from these games. And for a long time, this God of War doesn't do that. Pulling a tree around, punching lackeys, even the troll fight is fine. I didn't know what to expect when a mostly naked, skinny guy showed up at the door, but I absolutely didn't expect the unbelievable knockdown, drag-out fight that entailed. Seeing Kratos and the Stranger literally fissure the earth with how hard they punch each other seemed to be saying, oh yeah, we can still do God of War like you like it.
Is Jeff Clark writing it?
Sure. But on top of that, the Stranger, Baldur, yes, screaming, I don't feel anything, as you slice and dice him is weirdly
I
disturbing.
think Dan Tack was yelling the same thing over the course of the
It's
And
modeled after me.
and a definite departure from the tones of the other games. For the next several hours, I honestly just didn't feel like the game lived up to the excellence that first fight promised. I just don't care about elves, they say.
If I may, did anybody else, when like the Stranger punched Kratos in the at first, were you like, oh, he has no idea what he just did?
Oh yeah, big time
Like,
for sure.
I was
I
like,
think
oh
that is the
god.
expectation it sets up.
It does such a good job too. Like I think maybe even before that, he makes a reference to he might be in the know, where he's like, "You guys are supposed to be so enlightened." So clearly, he knows that he's a god of some sort. But yeah, they do such a good job of making that guy just seem a skinny nobody. That's like, all right, here we go. It's gonna be a slaughter.
Talking.
Yeah,
But like,
and I'm so glad I didn't know that was coming. Did you guys know that fight was in the beginning?
Oh no, clue.
No.
Well, I had read Joe's review before it went up, and I had read about like there's a moment in it that sets the bar absurdly high, and as I was playing, I was looking for it, and then immediately like after that fight, it's like, oh, this is totally the reference he used.
I liked the fight.
God
But
damn it, Dan.
He says in the most negative tone possible.
I don't like. him-
don't laugh.
I don't like him being like what we assume to be is, ostensibly at this point in the game we're at, he's the main villain.
Well,
And he's pretty boring.
There's a lot of foreshadowing about like Odin's a bad.
I know.
effing
Hey,
dude.
we've got lots more Norse big bads that could come out.
Even if
but
he is the main
boring,
villain, I
huh?
think he's an awesome main
I
villain.
don't think so.
I don't think he's the main villain either. Like,
No, I don't think he
mean,
is either.
Again, that's my ostensible take on things where we are in the game.
He's
Okay.
the biggest antagonist, I guess, for the first half of the game. That's like focused, and you clearly know who it is.
Because at the core, yes, he's an important Norse god, but he's also just a skinny guy.
For
I
sure.
saw him as a messenger.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kinda how I
He was
read
the
it.
envoy. He was like sort of a foreshadowing of things to come, and like
Right.
Yeah,
And I think I agree with the person who wrote the letter, just because like it did set that bar really high, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a very different game, and like this is like I had sort of hints of like, oh, this game is going to surpass expectations, be a game of the generation, and I feel like after that moment, it feels like it does level off and just becomes like, all right, you're going to fight like 4 more trolls, and you're going to solve puzzles the way you have been in
Totally.
pretty much every other game. It's
Right.
solid, and I like it. It's just that moment, like as much as I like it, feels like it sort of softens the impact of the rest of that game.
And I do feel like from the hype, I'd imagine it gets back to those moments by the end.
Yeah,
Well, let's see
I
what
hope so.
happens. Obviously, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
I didn't think he was going to be the main villain until we got to Mimir. When he was showing up and being like the primary, continuing that his arc of the villain that doesn't die.
I think you'll kill him before the end of the
Oh,
game. For sure.
I think we can say that without even speculation that he's going to die.
I love. Okay, let's focus on that fight. Maybe we can do it here at Game Inform, but I really want Santa Monica to make like an anatomy of that scene and just walk through frame by frame.
Well, when photo mode releases,
It's
I
a
don't know.
very cinematic
yeah.
encounter.
You can have all the entire fight with Kratos smiling the entire
But I love when he like crashes him through the roof of the cabin, and then Baldur just super quick. It's like, why are there 2 beds in here? Just like
That's
the
good.
kind of creepy, subtle way, or like you're climbing back up the cliff after he throws you off, and he's like taunting you. He's like, your struggle is pointless. I feel nothing.
It is it is an incredibly well choreographed scene, and I think it is. I know that some criticism has been levied at like, oh, it's not one shot because you can cut away, and it sort of just uses gameplay as sort of like a band-aid for the moments where it doesn't cut, where it's just like, I mean, you can pause it, which is one thing for sure, but also it doesn't cut, but it always goes to gameplay, right? Like, so it doesn't feel like an achievement in the way something like, I mentioned this on our live stream of just like, it's not sort of an achievement the way sort of that scene in The Raid or in True Detective where it feels like, oh, this took a lot of work. But I think that the what I like about that camera is that it feels more intimate, and I think that fight is sort of the first showcase of like, here's what we can do with this new camera angle. Of just, it is not, you are not sort of like walking on a god and you're like this tiny speck, so it's not sort of, it's a different kind of spectacle of just like, this is just so fast and furious with like the camera shifts, and it feels different from like God of War, and even it reminded me a lot of Hellblade too, of just like here's sort of this tracking shot where it feels really intimate, and that's kind of why I played it on performance mode.
It makes for very intimate encounters, but at the same time, it also, I don't know, like, I guess we'll get to the dragon later.
Yeah,
I'm sure somebody wrote in about it.
They did. You're right. It's not intimate enough.
Sometimes I do feel like the camera's chasing the action a little bit. Like, in a way, like there was one scene where like Kratos gets thrown far away and the camera like literally has to like run after him, Which I
like a little Lakitu.
At that part I was kind of like, I don't know if it was really worth it to like have this continuous camera, but I've come way around on it. And I actually really appreciate it just as a means to tell a continuous story.
Yes.
I like knowing that there's no camera cut going into the game, because like there was one scene where he's like, well, son, we have to go on this journey. And I think in most stories it would cut ahead to like, well, all right, a couple hours later they're on the journey. Like, knowing that wasn't going to happen and everything was going to continuously happen was cool.
I also feel like that specific shot, which I actually kind of remember, I felt like it tied into sort of how disorienting like that fight must be for Kratos, of just like, I had no idea this was coming. Like, because everyone goes into that scene expecting like, this is sort of when Kratos shows off a bit of just like, here's this guy who bothers, and like, it was supposed to be a show card of like, here's what he's done all these years, is just keep people away, and like then you're immediately surprised by the idea of like, this is the guy who's going to break through. This is the catalyst.
What did he want? He made some reference for like, I just came here for answers.
Actually, that's sort of the thing that frustrated
it's deliberately
me,
left
vague.
It's deliberately left vague, and I think we'll talk about it in the speculation phase.
Yeah, I wonder how.
We can talk about it now. What do you think?
How much of an unforced error that whole conflict could have been, of just like, I just needed to know where I could find some berries, and it's like, oh, Kratos, it's over there, and then that was the whole thing. Like, the fact that they left what he wanted ambiguous is kind of like, all right, it's maybe a little like, unless it's something major or whatever, it just feels like a little weird.
And maybe just the answers he's looking for is like, what are you doing here, other god? Like, we know you're here.
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
Dan, what do you think?
I think he was there for the mom. I think the mom is a god.
Yeah,
and I think Atreus is also a god.
Yeah.
But make it explicit. Like, have a line that alludes to what it's not necessarily like, oh, we know the like spoiler that this is what you want, but just like, I was waiting for that entire time of just like, what is he actually like? It felt really weird of like, you didn't let this conversation proceed long enough for someone to get mad.
I mean, they keep bringing that up. Like, what did he want? Kratos or Atreus be like, what did he want? And it's like, I do not know, boy.
Yeah. Don't ask me again.
I hit him before he could ask.
Well, what do you think about, real quick, Kyle, what do you think, real quick with this tangent that won't let you get back to your point, what do you think about the idea of, you say, oh, the mom's probably a god.
Yeah.
Well, what about like the magic that she clearly knows and she used in the forest to make like the ring of the trees, which, by the way, I love that you could see from the top of the mountain again. I don't know if you guys did that again and look back down, but you can see the broken ring. So clearly she's knows some magic, and maybe he's like an old Vanir god or something somewhere in the realm of the witch.
Well, I want to know something, and maybe this is, you guys know the answer to this, and I just wasn't sure. So she set up this protective barrier, right?
Yes.
And she used the trees to create that barrier,
yes.
right? So, and then she marked the trees for Kratos to cut down.
Yes.
So she essentially created a barrier. When she passed away, she had Kratos remove the barrier, right? Is that what happened?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I wasn't
in theory,
totally sure
the question is like, why? Maybe it's like
and
to force Atreus out of his comfort zone to get him to a different location so something magical can
happen. And again, there's obviously something very important about delivering the ashes. This is not being done just as a token for the white. Going through
Dan,
hell
you're
and back.
acting like a snob about like, you guys know stories exist.
No,
right?
I'm not.
It's like, yes, we're aware. We've only played half the
I'm
stories.
not exactly, and I want to play the rest so I can.
Okay.
I don't think she's a god, though. I
can
magical.
see it.
She may not be.
Magical, I think.
That's my
for
theory.
sure,
I think she has some significance to the people who like Baldur and all the other gods.
Yeah.
I don't know if she herself is a god, but I think she does have like quite a bit of significance.
So why does she want the ashes in this place?
There's got to be a story.
Yeah, I don't know.
A story thing.
I do think Baldur's coming after Kratos because of his history in Greece.
Yeah.
I think they see him as a danger to their way
interesting.
of life. Is
What if they start
is-
believing in you instead?
Well, not even believe in you,
Yeah.
but we don't want you to murder all of us because of like if
we know what you did,
If
basically.
this mass murderer from across the world
Yeah.
comes over here, we're gonna be nervous.
Well,
about
He's
it.
just living
remember-
in a shack.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
But remember
I
that
don't
the
know.
witch said,
I
like,
would be nervous about it if,
Yeah,
if
that
my
makes
neighbor
sense.
was like,
It's
you
also-
know, a mass
Known for
murderer.
killing
I
people
also-
named Kyle.
Yeah, I also wonder if that protective barrier was sort of like a invisibility spell of some sort of. As soon as he cut down that
Yeah.
first tree or whatever, it kind of broke in. It's like, oh, this guy is right here. Like, we need to take this guy out
Yeah.
because like suddenly here, like to use another Dragon Ball Z illusion, there's a very high power level we need to take care of.
our scouters are exploding. Well, yeah, I think that makes total sense. But remember, like, the way the witch implies it is like they don't like outsiders. It's not just a matter of like,
Not even just his history, just the fact that they don't know who he is. Man.
right. Like, hey, there's some weird crap going on here, and we're a bunch of drunk maniacs, and we
Yeah.
want to take them out. I'm glad you mentioned Dragon Ball because we're not done with the stranger fight here.
Okay.
Adam from Salem, New Hampshire says, I think the stranger, who we come to know as Baldur, might be one of the coolest, most cinematic brawls ever. It felt like I've always wanted a Dragon Ball Z fight to feel in a game. Was anyone else blown away as I was by the camera tightening in every time you block an incoming haymaker, or the consistent contextual banter Baldur throws at you throughout the fight? Tyler Oldfield says, playing that section this is why games are better than movies. Being able to control this section was just unbelievable. And Quentin writes in saying that it was just absolutely an unbelievable section. No, he doesn't. He says, this is my first game club. God of War has been an amazing experience so far. I can't remember the last time a boss encounter had left me nervous or cheering after his defeat like Baldur. However, I felt that aside from the absolutely astounding first fight with Baldur, the boss fights have been a little muted.
Absolutely.
Not by difficulty or creativity, but in scope. Maybe we've been spoiled too much by the fights in the original games with the Colossus-sized giants and great camera direction. Do any of you feel this way? Do you think these bosses pale in comparison to the original trilogy and Ascension?
I can't talk about much of the bosses past the first one, so I didn't play them. But yes, I can tell you the bosses have not been like they have not been an amazing experience for me. I thought the dragon was like, oh my god, a huge cool dragon. And I like the part where you're fighting him on the lift.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the top and it's just a gimmick throw the electric football fight, I was like, what the
Alec Provost writes in and says, I wasn't a huge fan of the Dragon Boss fight. It felt too gamey, and it clashed a bit with the game's more mature tone.
It's more of a
Dragon
puzzle.
Boss. Dragon Ball Z.
It's more of a puzzle than a like.
Yeah, it's just like you sit there, he just looks at you for like a straight minute. It's like, and then there's a little cue saying, pick up the electric ball, throw the ball at the dragon.
It's gamey, yeah, but I feel like
I don't mind if it's gamey.
I
It
think
did work. I liked it.
Sort of my bigger issue is that like I don't. It ties a little bit into combat as well. It's just like the fight. You fought like 4 trolls or whatever, and I feel like they're recycling that boss a little bit too much. But it like even in tough combat encounters, I feel like I can just my old reliable is just throwing the axe over and over again, and it doesn't feel like if I'm ever in doubt, just chuck the axe, and that is not to me a very entertaining way to play that game, especially after you get sort of that upgrade where like you can bounce off and do like a second throw. But
well, Kevin from Georgia writes in for you, Suriel, and says, I know this was brought up during the 2-hour live stream game for you, but I have to ask, do you guys find yourself just throwing the axe as the safest way to kill almost everything in the game? I've noticed I was killing the larger enemies almost exclusively this way, and it wasn't until the later part of Helfheim where I actually started using more complex combos. I still go back to the old axe throwing standby for regular enemies, but I came to appreciate the runic attacks and skill trees more and more as it went on.
I just think that they don't really offer you a good incentive for not doing that. Like it does just enough damage to where like I could probably like this isn't gonna take. It's not like Devil May Cry with the pistols where it's like I could do this, but it doesn't sound super good. Like it feels like it would take way too long, and there's no sort of like. I know that I don't want the game to be any more gamey, but there's no sort of incentive to get in. Like in Devil May Cry, it gives you like stylish points, and you get upgrades like tied to that.
Right.
But here, it just because there is no incentive to go in. It just I am going in and beating people up because it's fun, not because like it benefits me to do this. Because ultimately, like the best way is to just mash the square button and throw the axe as often as possible. Like that's the best way to approach combat in most situations.
Yeah, for sure. Shay, are you doing about the same thing in combat then?
No, actually, I'm barely ever throwing my axe unless it's like I'm on an approach and I see like a group of like 4 guys off in the distance. I'll throw at one of them and then I'll run in and beat the crap out of them with my bare fists so it gets their stagger meter up, and then I'll get Atreus to shoot him a couple times and then tear him in half.
There we go.
I've relied on the axe maybe like once, in that way where you just throw constantly. Where I was doing a side quest where I was fighting enemies that were over leveled, and I kept dying, and I was like, well, this is my safest route.
Right. Like,
but otherwise, I've been getting
the axe. I haven't been doing like that's not the only thing I've been doing. Like I've been engaging in combat because
we know you're the best God of War player.
Well,
on the
like
planet,
when you go in and you just like beat on enemies, like I feel like the combat feels better, but it feels like if the game ever pushes back, basically, I'm just like, okay, this is actually kind of hard. I just retreat to throw the axe mode.
You want Atreus to yell out, "Dad, that's lame! Stop doing it."
That only get like a B grade in terms of combos.
You're taking too long.
Well, Andrew Gillis agrees with you here. He says, what has surprised me most is the combat. It gets pretty chaotic, and once you start unlocking the numerous skills, it's almost overwhelming how many options you have at your disposal. I often forget about certain moves like the amulets or talismans or whatever those are. It's also jarring how projectile heavy the game is. The axe throwing is an awesome mechanic, and you're using it so much it reminds me of Gears of War a little bit. With the close over-the-shoulder camera, God of War is easily the best Thor game I've ever played. Good news is, we're throwing our axe a lot, but it always feels incredible. I'm still in love with that animation. I'm still satisfied after hours and hours and hours
Just
of
a
doing
little
that.
vibration,
Beyond that. Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought up the vibration. I think it's a great point, and I'm so glad somebody else, like Pat from Ireland, writes in about it and says, we should take a moment to appreciate the option to set vibration intensity and that it defaults at the max. It's something I don't find as common in modern games, but I think it beautifully adds to the weighty feel of the combat. This is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. And I was trying to figure out, like, why is vibration sticking with me so much in this game? And it's that you feel the axe as it goes. With each turn, it vibrates. And then when it hits something, your controller vibrates too. And it's such a subtle way to connect you to that axe throughout the entire game.
The sound in the combat is so good because it's just like every hit is just...
it feels really
it's just so loud.
Just everyone. It's like, bing, boom.
It's got good action.
And then like the sound when like you...
boom, splash, ow,
Wha-pow!
That's right.
Like that?
Yeah. Okay. And then when you recall the axe, the sound that it makes is awesome as well.
Yeah.
Like when it rips out of an enemy.
Oh, and just that catching animation is so good.
I love when I leave. I threw the axe like a few minutes ago, and then I needed to like solve a puzzle.
It takes a while to come back.
Well, then I'd forgotten that I never returned it, and it's like, oh wait, and then you just hold your hand out, and it takes a couple seconds. It feels
That's
so
also
good.
it would be so easy not easy, but just to have it like come back at the same time every time you recalled it. But the fact that it varies, just it lends such a credibility to that world, and remembering like, oh yeah, I think it was a couple stages back. I forget exactly where I left it. Danny, enjoying the combat, big boy?
I enjoy the axe feel. Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely enjoyed that. The standard combat, I don't know. I find myself relying on Atreus a lot. I'm playing on normal, so I don't know if this is different on other difficulties. Maybe I'll try one of the harder ones later. For Game Club, I didn't know how long it was going to take, so I just decided to play it on standard.
Can you bump the difficulty in the middle of the game? Do you know?
You can, but then you can't do ultra challenging.
That one you have to start from the beginning.
Yeah. And you can't bump down after you start that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ryan M says he feels like combat's missing something overall compared to the fun of the Blades of Chaos. On the difficulty thing, real quick. Sorry, I'm juggling paperwork.
We're
There's a lot
doing
to
too
go
much
through
juggling.
here.
Let's go in order.
No. This is relevant. Jake Ahola from Decatur, Illinois says, I'm just awful at this game. I'm playing on the give me a balanced experience difficulty, and occasionally I'm having trouble. I realize that there are some optional tougher enemies, but I hit a wall early on in the main campaign with a couple of Draugr burst out of a wall with heavy weapons.
Yeah.
I must have lost to these monsters at least 10 times before
I know that.
finally beat
I know
them.
exactly what the party's talking about. And
Since
that was
then,
tough.
Since then, I've upgraded Kratos and Atreus to make my experience more easygoing. Finally, I'm fairly certain Leo should add the opening music to Commando while Kratos is hauling the tree around. Leo, you don't have to do that legally, but
Draugr.
So you
Draugr.
want Leo to come to his house?
Yeah, I don't know.
That scene where they burst through the wall actually gave me some trouble as well.
Really?
So you don't have a
same
lot of
here.
abilities at that point. So yes, that's a point where I just said, okay, I'm going to throw the axe, and makes it seem really easy.
Yeah.
If you just keep backing up and throwing the axe. Later on, the combat does open up a lot, but I think it is essentially a pretty simple combat system.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm not super in love with it, but I feel like it does feel better and a little more intricate than like past God of Wars, which to me, like, I haven't played them in a while, so it just felt like you just press square and triangle in whatever order you want, and some cool things will happen and things will die. Like that was my recollection of God of War's combat, which might be a little dismissive, but like this feels like you have to at least think critically a little bit more, if not sort of. Even if when I'm throwing my axe, I have to like, okay, make sure that you are taking care of the enemies that are farther away. There's some enemies that will be super annoying if you don't take care of them immediately. And like there are different enemy types to deal with. Like some of them, can't be affected by your axe and things like that. So I do think this combat is better than sort of the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like that's why I didn't play the whole series of God of War.
Because you knew this game was coming.
I just didn't like the combat of
Good
it.
one on the way.
He knew.
Tommy Benson says, as a fan of every God of War since the PS2 original, I'm absolutely loving the game. The combat is magnificent and the axe is really cool. Let's be honest, though. The Blades of Chaos are 1,000 times more awesome and iconic. A sequel to this game needs to bring back the chain blades so we can experience them in this much more methodical combat. That's a tough thing with the camera. I'm playing through on hard mode, and I find every encounter a challenge and satisfying to overcome. I have one major nitpick, and it's an obvious one, but almost all the early reviews and impressions that have been giving this game a free pass because the rest of the game is leaps and bounds above every other PS4 action game. Here's the God's honest truth, though. Atreus is annoying as hell. His lines are way too Teen Titans-y for the way Kratos behaves, and he says the same lines in high-pitched, "Fire! Draugr! Mista!" way too often. This moment came early on. Since hard mode, you die a lot, and the game doesn't have varying dialogue whatsoever, the way Grand Theft Auto does. This is really annoying because I heard the first Draugr scream early on about 80 times because you have no skills at the beginning. So apparently it's tougher than people expected.
I believe the hard modes are for sure.
It's a little weird because like I don't know what you. I guess I don't know what he expects him to do when he sees a Draugr and sort of like, well, it's another one. All right. Like he has to sort of act a little bit. Just he has to make himself feel present. And I think he's a pretty, I mean, kind of words and all. I think he's a pretty good sort of rendition of a kid in a video game where he can be mopey. He has like little mood swings. He can like act a little bit immature sometimes. But I think that goes towards a portrayal of like having a kid who is around you all the time. Just you tend to sort of pick up on their tendencies, and sometimes you get a little annoyed with them.
I don't think he has any words. I like Atreus, and I don't find him obnoxious at all.
There we go.
Yeah.
Kyle's
I'm with
immune
you.
to detecting obnoxious kids. Just joking.
It's something you learn about, turns out.
Yeah, Alex P writes in and says 2018's God of War is my first ever God of War game, but I'm really enjoying the character reinvention of Kratos. He's a serious old grumpy bastard. And he's really touched by Kratos and Atreus's relationship. Elliot Smith writes in, back from the dead, everybody, and says, my favorite moments are when something happens when
Can you do it in
Atreus...
a more breathy kind of...
Atreus and Kratos is behind him, slowly lifts his hand. Okay, that's annoying, and wants to pat him on the back, but he doesn't know how to give him this type of support. Just the emotional depth in these two characters and their relationship astounds me. Alec Provost also mentions that, saying the moment when Atreus releases the floating lantern and Kratos finally puts his hand on his back was one of the most moving moments I've experienced in any game, let alone God of War. In spite of the fact that it was such a small gesture, the fact that Kratos is so reserved results in it being incredibly powerful.
I agree. I wanted Kratos so badly to just tussle his hair just once.
How do you think the game's going to end? Do you think he's going to be like, Atreus, you're all right?
I think he's going to go, you want a piggyback ride?
He's going to call him man.
I love it.
Oh, that'd be so good.
That will not happen.
But it's gonna be like, all right, man.
That will not happen.
Never know.
They're gonna kiss on the lips.
Oh, Leo in the booth.
Leo.
Spoilers!
Did you Google "kiss on the lips" and that was the spoiler that popped up? Was the God of War scene from 2018?
It's just gonna be then like
Yeah.
Atreus kills the last boss somehow, sort of Wind Waker style, stabs him in the head, and like he looks over to Kratos, and Kratos gives him a thumbs up, and then he gives him a thumbs up, and then the end, stop,
like
stop,
a pop song.
roll credits, yeah.
Love it.
Henrik-
Or freeze frame and then say where everyone went in
Yeah,
5
you
years.
definitely need the freeze frame. Yeah.
Henrik Mortensen says,
Kratos lived forever.
Kratos went on to continue being a god.
Henrik says the way Kratos and Atreus talk to each other and bring up old stories reminds me a lot of Uncharted. Like when you get out of the boat, they cut the conversation short by saying, "Let's talk about it later." And the way they pick up the stories again is incredible. I think Uncharted is clearly the best in the biz in that area, but God of War
I get it. That's pretty
is
clever.
scarily close. What are your thoughts? I didn't have this experience. Maybe I didn't toy around with it enough.
you
But
gotta
when I
get
was
the
in the
boat.
boat and the stories were rolling, I was scared to go anywhere. Like I literally just stopped the boat because I wanted to hear the stories because that's super fun stuff. And the one time I didn't, I got interrupted. Like
Yeah.
it cut off the story
Really?
before it finished. Yeah.
And then I had to kind of swim around for a little while longer, just wait until it picked back up again. So
and
I haven't had that Uncharted stuff.
I have a crazy theory.
Oh, boy.
This is my far-fetched theory.
This
Is
crazy.
the timing in the boat for the stories? It feels off. Even like during like the main story stuff, some of the dialogue in the boat, I feel like it's getting cut off, and I have to kind of wait around a little bit.
Yeah.
Combined with the fact that boat moves so effing fast.
What?
I wonder if later on, after they recorded the dialogue and had that all timed out for the gameplay space, then they sped up the boat because Kratos like dabbles
Yeah.
the paddle in the water and it's like, bling! and he's like,
I'm
a
glad
jet
it's
ski.
fast.
I am too, but
I
I think the timing was changed or wasn't changed because of that, and that's what's throwing out.
I don't know,
dialogue.
Hanson. Let's finish the game. Let's see if maybe they suss out that theory.
Well, Dan,
towards the
Dan,
end.
what were you going to say
I don't
about,
know.
about
I find
the boat?
I find the boat rides just insufferable.
Really?
Really.
Insufferable?
It's just like,
Man.
Maybe the
I
only
feel
insufferable
like-
thing is your.
I feel like maybe, but I feel like a lot of the times when I'm playing the game, including the boat rides, it feels like I'm just doing chores. It feels like I'm not having a good time when I'm doing.
you
played
ever
a
done
video game
chores?
before?
I have done chores.
Have you played a video game?
I dabble.
But are they telling stories? Are you finding those engaging, or are you just not
The
interested?
story's all right.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like
Turns out the hare, or I mean the tortoise one.
like it doesn't do anything for me. I'm like, let me kill some more monsters. Let me kill
Yeah.
a big boss thing. That's what I'm here for,
Okay.
right? Like it.
I like those like moments hanging out with Atreus, and also in the water, it's a small thing, but you can look out for barrels to get hack silver.
Yeah, you got to get that.
Just
hack
an-
silver.
I mean, it's just a nice little direction to give you while you're
and
going
again,
from point A
I
to
want
point
to temper
B.
this a little bit. I'm not saying it's like the worst thing ever, but
Yeah.
it's.
You want to get to the action. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, enough with this.
You
God
would
of
have
War play.
hated Wind Waker.
That's true. Aaron writes in just for you, Dan.
Did he?
And says, hello, Hanson and crew, specifically Dan. How encouraged have you been to check out the side content in the Lake of Nine so far? It's like a Souls game in the way that it can let you walk into fights in areas you're not ready for when enemies can kill you in one hit, but I love it because of that freedom and that surprise.
That's weird. I don't think I've. Maybe I
disagree
haven't
with that.
explored to the extent that you guys have, but I don't think I've encountered an enemy that like felt like, oh, I guess I should come back.
Oh,
Like,
I
Jogger.
totally did.
Really?
I
Jogger.
totally did. I had a guy that was killing me in one hit.
Well, there's
Really?
was it one of those glowing orbs?
It was at the Thor statue.
Okay, because there's what you can run into is like you'll find these like glowing orbs, and if you activate them, like there was
Yeah.
one that sprouted two witches that
Those
killed me
are
in
really
one hit.
good.
And the idea is you go back. To
Oh
those
no, it
powered
wasn't that. It
levels.
was I just found an island, and
Yeah.
it was like I was trying to like help out the spirits that were around the Lake of the Nine,
Yeah.
and yeah, I did 3 of the 4 that you're supposed to do, and I did the 4th one, and it was like I was being killed one hit. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, like the
It's been rare though. I would
Sorry,
say.
like the hardest part that I had was like there was that one side quest, but I think Brock takes you on where it's just like go get me this like dead guy's like
you have to
ring
go to
or
the
what-
different
Fafnir
rooms.
storage.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
find me this guy, and you have to go in like there's 4 different paths, and like that has been the hardest part of the game
Yes.
for me so far.
That's where I was throwing the axe. is
yeah,
that one
like
scene.
that was sort of the one time where I was like, okay, I'm gonna like this is gonna get dicey, but like beyond that, I guess I haven't explored to where
Maybe.
you guys have, but I've seen purple health bars and stuff. It's just I
Yeah.
haven't. Maybe I should go back and explore a little bit more. But
Travis says that unlike other more open world games, I don't feel overwhelmed when I explore this game. This game is focused in every instance and he loves it. Tyler feels the opposite, saying games with this sort of openness gives me anxiety all the times. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything, but I also want to stay connected to the main story and not miss any narratives. Is this just me? Are you guys?
So I don't feel that it's open world at all.
No,
right?
no,
Like there's-
definitely not.
You've got a couple of side activities, but it's a straight line.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, like that's how it feels to me.
Well, what do you guys think? You're feeling the push and pull of like, I want to go explore, but the main story I'm enjoying so much, I feel like I'm robbing of that.
I feel like it's always minimal enough to where it's like, oh, I mean, I can have this little tangent. Like it never feels like, oh man, I can like I have like 5 different quests I can go tackle at once. I don't know what to do. It always feels like you are on this main path, and every once in a while there's sort of like a left or a right turn that you can maybe take, and then go back on the main path.
And Atreus will remind you, hey, should we go
Yeah.
exploring? Hey.
Yeah. One thing on this topic, which is like maybe a bigger discussion, or maybe not. I don't know. The size of the world reminds me a lot of Arkham Asylum, like where it's
Yeah.
open. Like and there's a lot of elements of the game that remind me of Arkham Asylum.
The repeated boss fights.
in a really good way. Like even things like throwing the axe, like even you throw a lot of batarangs in Arkham Asylum, and like it's just and the way the camera is really tight on Kratos is just like it's really tight on Batman, and the way it's like a continuous story without any cuts is like very Arkham Asylum.
Injustice, Gods Among Us.
Exactly.
Also similar like cloth tech that looks really impressive.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because of that, everyone is kind of calling out what I love this game, but everyone's calling it as like this crazy new innovator, and I'm like, I don't really feel that. I'm really enjoying it, but I've had experiences like this
Right.
before in games, and one of them is
Right.
Arkham Asylum specifically. Like and I love that game's size. Like I think sometimes the later Batman games got a little too big. But I love the size of Arkham Asylum, and I love the size of the area in God of War. It's open enough where you can explore, but not so big that it feels like there's a lot of wasted space, which I really appreciate.
My biggest concern whenever I'm like trying to do all the stuff in an area is I'm concerned that I'm not going to get like I'm gonna like because there's always like the 2 paths you can take. There's like this is the side area and this is like the main area.
Game design.
Yeah.
And
Hey.
I'm always worried I'm going to take the wrong path and I'm going to like advance the story before I get everything. So I'm
Right.
like I'll hear Atreus say like like some narrative line, and I'm like, oh god, go back.
I feel like that's an instinct you have to develop. But to speak to Kyle's point, like about sort of like the size and sort of the comparisons to Arkham, I think one of the things that I was sort of expecting was sort of like that, right? Like the way people have been talking about this game, I felt like it was going to be sort of like a rise above one. And I think during that Baldur's fight, I felt it of like, oh, this could be something different. Like this could be something new.
Yeah.
And I think from there, it feels like it has not necessarily developed, but like it went back to being like very high quality, kind of like very above average, but kind of still standard video game.
Yeah.
Well,
which real quick, by the way, everyone's calling out that Baldur fight as being this big like oh this is different God of War. Every God of War opens with an insane boss fight.
Like that one is different.
God of War 3 is absolutely nuts. You're climbing Mount Olympus and you're fighting Titans and you kill Poseidon in like the first hour.
I played that. I did not give a crap.
The opening of God of War 3
feel a thing.
Well, that.
Kyle, I felt like Baldur at that moment.
Stupid.
When I talk about like it felt feeling different, I think it is the way that fight ties into the series' tone of just like this. He feels sort of desperate and not sort of like super angry and like he's
taken off guard.
Yeah. Of just like it felt sort of something from a different, and that fight felt like is this what this game is going to be? Because like the degree to which that fight is interactive feels kind of like different from what we've seen in God of War, and it felt like is this game, for a little bit I thought, is this what this game is going to be? It's just going to be sort of like progressing through sort of minimal character fights, but also having it be super boss focused, or have like the structure of the game felt different. And I think that game sort of raises that expectation a little bit, but then from there it just continues to be regular.
I guess to zoom out a little bit on my point, I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is like a big crazy opening boss fight is not an exception for God of War.
But I don't,
Yeah,
I guess the difference here is I agree the scale, but I think just the impact of the fight is what feels different about that. Like it's not the biggest thing. It's not like a huge enemy, but in terms of like caring about the one-on-one brawl, I didn't give a crap about the Poseidon thing.
That's because you didn't play God of War 1 and 2.
Yeah,
and
you're totally right.
God of War is a parody of video
You're totally
games.
right. You're totally right. But this one, I didn't
Do
care.
you understand what the gods did to Kratos?
To be fair,
everything was building up to that fight on Mount Olympus.
But my point is, I didn't care about God of War when I started this game.
True.
Like I knew it was going to be good based on the reviews and Joe blabbing about it and stuff, but I gave a crap about that fight and it had a huge impact on me, and that's the difference, I think.
By the way, I love that opening fight.
Right.
It's great.
Stop asking.
I also think like there's a pace, like
Also, it sucked.
like the thing about the God of War is like the stakes by them are so high that it just feels like here's another monster he's going to take down. And I think the fact that you have this conversation with him at least, and establishes a little bit of stakes, and also the fact that Atreus is sort of part of it.
Kratos is yelling from the foot of the mountain. That's a conversation. That counts.
Well, but like it felt sort of like the storytelling in God of War felt sort of like super campy in a way that it was hard to take it seriously. And I think before then, God of War sort of establishes a thing of like you should maybe take it a little bit, like the story a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
And the way this integrates into that, I think, is sort of the thing that sort of signaled to me like this feels different.
Nathan Jones from Ohio wants to bring up something that Kyle brought up 7 minutes ago. He said,
"Oh, Batman!"
Talking about comparisons to other games. Is it just me, or is the game design strikingly reminiscent of Dantek? What do you think he's going to guess?
Well, since you just brought Kyle, it's Batman.
Incorrect. Strikingly,
Super Meat
I don't know
Boy.
what you're thinking. Strikingly reminiscent of Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I mean that in a very positive way.
I can see that. For sure.
I actually do see that.
Yeah. Not
There's
only
snow.
the snow thing. Well, also forget about the fact that Cory Barlog was going to direct Rise of the Tomb Raider, and then he left Crystal Dynamics to go back to Santa Monica. So it's bizarre that they end
Well,
up
if they're
being...
not going to let Laura fight Baldur, I guess God of War will fight him.
What series can I put
God of
Baldur in?
Now that would be sweet.
I like that comparison of a similar size thing, where an open, not an open world, but a series of open levels.
Well, what do you think about this comparison? Adam
Love
H.
it.
and Naaman, I'm sorry, pronounced Numan? Okay.
Numan
and Adam H. Raiden, they both reference like, Zelda references, Last of Us, Uncharted references. Then they both come to one reference out of the blue. I had no idea. These are also my favorite franchises. All these references are fun. I even see a nod to Darksiders with the shatter crystals, which is funny because Darksiders was itself a huge nod to the original God of War games. And then also, Numan says that exact thing, saying the sap bombs are almost identical to a mechanic in Darksiders, where you throw these spike balls at specific areas to cause explosions to open pathways. And the fast travel system, where you traverse the world in a tree, is similar to the Vulgrim Gates, where you do almost the exact same thing. Do you guys see any other similarities? Has God of War ultimately stolen the thunder of Darksiders 3?
Well, I don't know if grenades are a patent.
They kind of do look similar. Like if you
mechanic,
put the asset for like or the models for those bombs in Darksiders, I feel like they wouldn't have looked out of place because they're like kind of edgy and glowing and like they kind of looked in that style.
Yeah, very very Joe Mad. Oh my gosh, let's get into this.
Okay.
Henrik says, how awesome is that World Serpent? The way he looms over the lake at all times and changes his positions between story segments are awesome. He has literally scared me a couple times when I look up in the sky and his eyes are glaring at me. Probably one of my favorite scenic objects, creatures, anything I've ever witnessed in a game. Ryan M says, anything with the World Serpent is mesmerizing for me. I also really love the cinematic interactions with the dragon atop the mountain, even if the gameplay didn't impress me there as much. Okay, so World Serpent.
The World Serpent, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, really, really great. In fact, I think it's somewhat, again, somewhat of a missed opportunity that we're not going to get to fight it ostensibly.
Maybe Odin will like possess him at the end or something, or maybe like it has been Loki the whole time.
It's funny because I kind of feel the opposite.
He's a major figurehead in Norse mythology. Absolutely, he's been in a ton of games. But this is really good. I think he looks amazing. He'd be a stereotypical God of War boss fight, right? It's just a giant monster.
That's why I like that you don't fight him.
Yeah,
because when they first showed him, I was like, I bet I got to kill.
Also,
they
can make a sequel.
Well, I wanted to kill it. All right.
Also, I just think it's so clever.
I don't like that thing.
It's so clever to have him like laying in the lake, and then when he gets out, then that changes the water level. It's like, oh yeah, of course, science. That's right. But I guess maybe I haven't been looking around or paying attention enough. I haven't noticed him shifting, but a lot of people emailed in like it's so cool that he moves, and every time you go back to that area, he's like in a slightly different spot. Overall, that's so cool.
Yeah, I didn't notice it. Yeah, I think I'm with you. Where besides the one time they say, "Hey, the water level shifted because he's lit," like the one time they explicitly mention it, but beyond that, I don't feel like I've interacted with it too much, and like even looking at it.
Yeah, I like that moment too, where Atreus is like, "Oh, it's a World Serpent. They say he wraps around the whole world." And Kratos is like, "Exaggeration. It's overrated. It's not that big." Oh my gosh, Randolph Sparks says, favorite small moment is when you're climbing up to the summit of the mountains and Atreus says it feels good to be strong and powerful. And Kratos just sighs and says, yes, it does. That's very
It's so true.
Yeah, it's a cute little moment.
There's another one where he's pushing something and he's like, that looks heavy. He's like, it is.
So that's one of those weird things where, Atreus doesn't know that Kratos is a god, but does he ever question why his dad can carry a tree on his shoulder and do all this amazing stuff?
I think he knows.
He does make remarks.
He has to know.
He makes remarks about you've always been really strong, Dad.
This dude is lifting freaking mountains in front of him.
But he doesn't have a scale. There's nothing to compare it to.
What is his frame of reference for strength?
Yeah. He just thinks all women are weak, apparently, like his mom, in theory, and then his dad.
Yeah, the idea of people just lift trees all the time. That's fine. He has no reason not
he
to
doesn't
think that.
interact with other humans.
When I'm that old,
this dude is lifting up giant rocks in front of you, all the time.
Yeah, he just probably thinks I'm going to do that one day.
If you lived in a tiny cabin in a tree circle in
we
Midgard,
don't know. We don't. Okay, whatever. Let's finish the game.
Let's finish the game. Andrew Valla and Matt Holden both really love the Alfheim sequence, and especially the reveal of that world. Even when we didn't talk about that weird sequence where the witch is getting sucked back.
So let's talk about Alfheim a little bit.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
I liked the Alfheim, especially the part with the boat, with the lights and stuff. Thought that was a really cool part.
Yeah.
I didn't care for the boss. I thought that was the most
horn guy?
Whatever. He's like a mini boss, whatever.
I don't even know if I consider him a boss.
He kind of a mini boss. He's got a health bar.
Mini boss.
Sure, he's a boss.
He's just who is
another enemy?
Why do I care?
Yeah.
Some dark elf guy.
You know what makes up for that?
He is the guy that took Atreus. Yeah.
I'm just saying,
why don't you love Atreus?
You have all of Norse mythology to draw upon, and what we get is some little elf thing.
Let's wait till the end of the game.
Yeah.
We are going to,
dark elves.
but we're talking about the first half here,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm talking about.
It is weird that they sound like Star Wars characters and they look like the Geonosian guys.
I really did feel that way.
Yeah.
I really did feel that way.
I gotta invent a language, it's tough, but every time they would fly around, I'd be like, this is Attack of the Clones, man. This is bizarre.
Yeah. I also wonder, they spend an inordinate amount of explaining the different worlds of hey, here are all these worlds, and you can you have to move the bridge in order to transport and there seems to be 7 other worlds or whatever. I imagine we're not going to see all of them unless you do a really whirlwind tour of the rest of that world.
Yeah.
I just wonder how much that's going to factor into the rest of the game, because it feels like for how much they've explained it, I don't know that my speculation would be that you don't necessarily interact with it as much as they sort of say at the upfront, okay, you have to go in here and then you have to power up this thing, and they go into this whole sort of super long explanation about this thing.
Which, by the way, your brother loved because he said it looked like some Protoss shit.
Oh,
it does look like some Protoss.
Yeah. Well, when they were describing it's the exact same geography. but it's a different realm. Like they went out of their way several times to be like, we're in the same location. And I really thought, and maybe if this was a cheaper production and not Sony funding this thing, it's like they would have repurposed that layout and just like changed the art assets on top of it. But I loved once I got out to Elfheim, I was like, oh no, maybe in a way I can't see it. But in theory, this is completely different geography. That's so cool.
So I guess I just wonder, like, this feels like a weird layer that it so far doesn't need to be there.
Well, okay,
it does open the door in the setting for like easy like punch in DLC, right? Those areas just open up.
Oh, interesting. I'd imagine we're going to go to a lot of those later in the game. But Ryan M writes in with something that I didn't try or didn't know about. He says, my least favorite moment was learning I could go to the Fire Realm only to find out that its sole purpose is being an arcade arena mode that I'll have to suffer through later on for a trophy.
Did
he jump ahead?
No,
I didn't go there.
You can do side quests and you will unlock the ability. I literally because what happened is a couple days ago I got to our midpoint, so now I've just been doing side quests. And I unlocked that area, and I actually went in there last night. I didn't, and in fact, it's like I didn't realize that's what it was going to be, which is kind of a bummer. But one interesting thing about it is when you do go to the different areas like that, you do get a better sense of it being like, I guess you could call it an alternate dimension, where it's like the same sort of layout. I didn't really, was it Alfheim?
Yeah.
Like I just thought it was a completely new area. I didn't really get the sense. But the fiery area, whose name I can't remember, that he's referencing in his email,
I forget.
that feels more like the similar geography with like a different sort of.
Oh, okay.
coat
So
on
it
top
does
of
do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Check it out, the
interesting.
Fire Nation.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you do the side, I think you do the two dwarves side quests, you
Yeah.
get the option to go in there.
We're really going through all of the best maps for Age of Mythology here, Dan. With Jotunheim, Elfheim, we got them all.
I mean, there is a lot. There's Norse mythology is, just to get it out here, I'm glad that they chose Norse mythology. There's lots of great stuff to tap into there.
I also feel like it glosses over we're glossing over the implication of like, oh yeah, Norse mythology, Greek mythology, they exist in the same world. No repercussions.
They said
those two stories don't cross over whatsoever.
We have a video, you can find it in our God of War hub, where we try to get them to explain exactly how they see it, like if there's a distinct border, how exactly this works, and they say that all of the mythologies exist on the world at the same time.
Yeah,
So Jesus is walking around in this.
I'm saying
You know what?
Jesus walks.
It makes complete sense to me.
With Kratos.
I figure I can totally suspend disbelief for that.
It doesn't feel that weird.
Yeah.
I thought it would, but it does feel like he just was able to travel.
If we're
to a
in the
different
realm
part
of
the world.
myth, we're in the realm of
Also,
myth.
he's immortal, so we don't know how long ago all that Greek shit went
It's true. Also, in terms of, Kratos in the realm of myth, it's one of those things where he's seen some absolutely insane things in his history.
Yeah.
The idea of like the time dilation in that moment of like when he goes to the Mass Effect 3 black and white world, it's like that kind of threw him off. He's like, what do you mean? 2 different time frames. But it's like, man, you killed gods. This should not be a
And
confusing thing.
he actually literally went back in time once.
That's
Well,
sure then. But still, that moment is.
It was
Well, I
magic.
think he was probably trying to
surprised.
explain it
You
to
can explain
Atreus,
anything
like
off of
because
magic.
Atreus was really angry with him. Then.
His performance is so good there. Like, you left me. Like, he was so mad.
You've been gone for a really, really long
Yeah.
time.
He had to kill
That
a
was good.
lot of elves.
Oh, and then I forget if it was connected to that or after that, where then they made some reference to like, where Atreus, because he can hear Atreus when he's in the black and white world, and he talks about like how he can't connect with his father when he's in the black and white world. And I think it's later on Atreus makes a reference to be like, basically, I knew her better than you did. You were always off hunting. Like, I love that moment. And Kratos says something like, better fucking stop talking.
Yeah.
I like the moment where it said, "Don't interpret my silence as a lack of grief."
Right.
Like that was a great moment.
Yeah, for sure.
My
God!
He said, I'm really sad. In his own words.
What do you think is going on with Atreus and the sickness and the voices and hearing his mom? And is it, this is far-fetched, is it connected to, he said he could hear Brock's beast because he was scared of something. And so it's like, does he have some weird power where he can hear his mom
It's pretty
because she's scared of something?
Here's my, again, I've already made this prediction that Atreus is a god himself.
Sure.
So he's probably got all kinds of powers.
Okay, what about the sickness thing then?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's
I
going.
think he's half. I think he's half god. I mean,
He's
I
definitely
don't think he's full.
He's
god.
at least half god.
He's at least half god, and I
Yeah.
think that just manifests itself in powers where he is. He can sense other people's emotions, like Deanna Troi from Star Trek: The Next Generation. She can't really read people's minds, but she can read how they feel.
She can make
Okay.
good guesses.
And so he can feel his mom in the afterlife?
I think so. Yeah.
Because they imply that she seems like distressed.
Yeah. I mean, and they've established that souls can kind of hang around if they have unfinished business, and maybe the unfinished business is delivering.
So yeah, I'm assuming that the wife here is of Norse origins, no matter what, right? Right?
Yeah.
So
Faye.
like
Let's call her Faye.
in universe, we can call her that. I don't know if that's going to be
That's
it.
her name.
but It's the name we have.
I think they've mentioned it explicitly that her
It's
name.
the name we have.
Let's wait till the end of the game.
Dan's just being, he's just thinking of all.
Personally, I feel like we got a couple more hours of the story to tell, and
I do too.
I don't want to spoil anything, but the game will wrap up.
All right, well, I'll wait for that.
Do you guys think it'll map to some other? Like, I wonder if we knew Norse mythology better. It's like, oh yeah, being able to read minds and emotions. That totally maps.
There are
onto
definitely
Discon.
some things
Let's
that
ask
we
faster.
can extrapolate from Norse mythology, which are probably huge spoilers. So I'm not going to go into them right here.
But there are. Well, answer me this: are there like mind reading, emotion reading?
No, not
things
that I
you
know.
of?
I'm just talking about other things that are obviously going to happen.
Gotcha.
Mike Hennessy, real quick, says, I like that everything isn't a quick time event. I especially appreciate that I don't have to button mash to open every door. No more frustrating minigames. I really just like the flying sequence from God of War 3. So the quick time events thing, there's subtle stuff where like you tap circle to like get the big thing back on track to like set up the realm spinner, all that nonsense. But even out of the gate, there's a part of me, and I'm not a fan of quick time events, but it was the moment when Atreus and Kratos, and he's like testing him in the cabin with like his speed with like the punches. There's a part of me where it's like, I want to control this. Even if it's a quick time event, I kind of want to control having Atreus do the punch and trying to slap his hand.
There are a few where there, I think when you're trying to like align the lift or whatever, you have to go into the specific thing and push it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
it's
actually,
very minimal.
you have the option if you go into the options menu, as you would imagine, to have it be a hold instead of a tap.
Oh,
That's
that's
smart.
smart.
Tell me more about
That's
these
nice.
options.
I'm going to go change that.
That does sound pretty good. And then also another thing I love is, I don't know if it was like this in the old game, maybe it was, Kyle, but I love just like slamming your foot down, just like stomping the little health things. It's such a quick,
that was-
easy
I like those.
animation.
I
like
remember if
it.
that's how it was in the original.
I like it.
It's a super gamey thing though. But
Oh, guys.
I like how he punches just through chests.
yeah.
Yeah.
Open them.
Yeah, for sure. Michael
I also
Giannetto.
like that his little axe holder is his logo from the original God
Yeah.
of War. I would be curious about that conversation with the
Kyle,
metalwork.
I'd
That's-
like this one custom made.
I like that he
please.
grew a nice beard.
I like that too.
Anthony Argain from Malvern, Pennsylvania says, holy crap, not only did Santa Monica bother to actually animate something in Kratos' back to hold his weapon instead of most games which have it levitate, but it's actually the God of War symbol.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That is so cool.
There it is.
We called it.
Michael Giannetto mentions that, hey, there's armor in this game. I'm using the metal plate armor, STR focused. What do you guys think of the gear and all that?
I haven't noticed it making too much of a difference. I'd like to see more like, I want it to know like how it affects my stats more, I guess. But
Sure.
it's not that important, and I get that. It's just there. It's the thing you upgrade, and you just go through the motions. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
it feels a little superfluous. Of like, I'm not noticing the change like that. And I'm sure, like, if I took off all my gear, I'd get my
Yep.
ass kicked more easily. But it feels like, oh, we need to give them something to maintain. It can't. The game can't be this simple, right? Like,
Yeah.
So we need this gear system in there. So, like, it's one of those games where I just pick whatever looks cool because, like, when you pick different gear sets, when you upgrade them, they get stronger. But like when you're choosing between different pieces of gear of the same tier, it feels like you're sort of just swapping stats. It doesn't feel like, okay, well, this armor is more geared towards this. So I just end up picking sort of like the standard thing and just upgrading it.
Yeah, for sure. Randolph Sparks right in. Brian Shea, this is for you.
okay.
He says, this has been one of the best reinventions I've ever seen. So much has been radically changed, yet it all still feels like God of War. I think the music really goes a long way here, especially those ominous choral chants, and of course, the grab kills are just as God of War gets. What do you think of the music so far, Shay?
I like it.
Yeah, I'm really blown away, and I feel bad that we were making jokes underneath it a while ago on the podcast when we did that text adventure, because even in the background of during that entire sequence, I was like, that music's really good. And now that it's focused in the game, I think it's incredible.
Accompanying the action, it's just unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Jimmy Bedell, JT, Adam from Salem, New Hampshire again. He says, I'm sorry, I wrote it again. Yep, that's okay. They all absolutely love the camera work. They think it's absolutely amazing. Also, they say I pronounce vague funny. Yep, that's right. I'm Minnesotan. That happens. Scott Heslop. Scott Heslop is speaking my language here, Dan.
Is he?
And it's not
what's
Norse.
he saying?
He says, I think this game should be renamed God of Puzzles. Seems like I can't walk more than 50
I
feet
like
without
this
having
guy.
to solve a puzzle to get where I want to go or to open a chest. I wish there was more combat sequences and just let me open up chests where I want to go. I appreciate the story, combat, role, and characters, and I want to experience those.
That is what I was referring to earlier. Was sort of like it just becomes like, I don't like how it sometimes it just feels like I'm doing structured segments. Like now I'm solving a puzzle, then I get rewarded with a battle, and then I have to go back to doing like puzzles and climbing and moving rocks.
Do you not like this game, Dan?
I do like it. I'm certainly not as hot on it as everyone else.
I like the
puzzle.
puzzles, actually.
Me too.
Like, I think they're simple, but they're fun to do.
Like, I'm absolutely not saying this is a bad game. That's insane.
Okay, gotcha.
This is a good game, not a great game.
Okay.
I like the puzzle a lot too.
I like doing them. It just feels like half the rewards is like, all right, I got this hack silver. Like, why does Kratos need hack silver? He's like one of the most powerful beings in the universe.
Helps
Like,
me
I
on
understand
the
like axe upgrades, like to his divine axe or whatever. But like the idea of like, I really need to do this puzzle so I can get just a little bit more silver so I can have a stronger piece of gear. It just doesn't feel like it's in line with what that game wants to convey.
Yeah, the
Right.
rewards are one thing, but I do enjoy
The puzzles themselves, I think, are fun.
Yeah, even if it's a lot of searching around trying to find runes, a lot like Hellblade. Where it's like, I'm just
Yeah.
looking
Yeah,
for runes
that's-
in this environment.
Actually, the rune puzzles I don't mind. It's the
Oh,
stuff
okay.
where it's just like, now I'm climbing on a wall, still climbing on a wall. Now I'm moving a rock. Now I'm looking around for some
Now I'm
stupid
pressing
thing
a
I gotta
button
hit.
in a video game.
I will
Moving
like
a rock.
the reason I think that's going to affect me later on is that you encounter things like we don't have the right tool for that right now. We have to go back, and I think for most of those, I know the reward is going to be like hack silver or some rune that's not going
God,
to
I want
replace
some hack silver.
the two that I already have. Like the rewards don't feel compelling enough to where I don't know if I'm going to go backtrack and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Except for those doors, like the doors with like the
Yeah.
diamond on them.
Those
Those feel
two
like
doors.
those will be significant.
Yeah.
But everything else is like the chests that are like wrapped in red barbed wire. I don't know if I like. All right, where were those chests when I got I have this ability now?
Yeah.
Where were those chests? I don't know if I'm going to be compelled enough to go back and do that stuff.
But do you find the rewards for doing the where you hit the marks? Yes, I'm talking.
Yeah, you get the apples, man.
Yeah, like
for that maximum
those
health,
are
you got to
those are
do them.
worthwhile, right?
Yeah,
you, guys
you gotta
do
do
those, right?
Those are good, but like you
No.
don't know if you're going to
You
get
should
that
do
or
them.
hack silver is the thing.
And actually, those
Well-
puzzles are simple and
Well-
I think entertaining because they're just a simple timing quest most of the time where you got to figure out,
Yeah.
move here, throw, do another thing.
But those you consistently get an apple or your
Rage
Spartan
one,
Rage,
yeah.
right? Like I always do those for that reason. It's not
Okay.
hack silver. Like there are plenty of hack silver puzzle ones, but
The
as
glyph
far as the
chests.
glyphs,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
always do the.
You gotta do
glyphs.
those.
Always
Yeah.
do the glyphs. That's
Yeah.
a good lesson. Little details here. Andrew Vallis says the attention to detail in this game is amazing. I love that you can see which talismans are equipped in the Leviathan axe while walking around. It reminds me of Cloud's Buster Sword with materia slots from Final Fantasy VII. Tim from Arizona, I never read diary entries, but having them from Atreus' perspective was brilliant, and I'm reading every one. I haven't
Wow.
I haven't
done
looked
any
at
of
them.
that.
He
No.
basically leaves internet comments at the bottom of every article.
Oh, really?
He says first every time.
Oh, I like him.
Oh, nice. Oh, these ravens are everywhere.
Dan's like, oh, he's into memes. Oh, I like this guy.
What a
Yeah.
hip
How
dude.
dank is Atreus?
I've changed my mind on him.
Mitch says, how do you guys feel about the change in Kratos' voice actor from T.C. Carson to Christopher Judge? Was it a necessary change for the evolution of the character? T.C. Carson doesn't seem happy about it, and I checked his Twitter account, and it's he retweets a lot of people that say, like, yeah, the new God of War is good, but it wouldn't be anything without the foundation built by T.C. Carson's version of Kratos.
He's not that much different than the original
Yeah.
voice actor.
Yeah, I
so-
actually had to look it up. I had to ask Joe. I was like, "Is this the same guy?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "All right, I guess if he had been the same guy, I would have been like nonplussed by it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was necessary, but I mean, he's great.
I think Christopher Judge, I think he's doing a great job.
I hope Kiefer Sutherland is the next one.
Me too. I would love that. I would unironically think that's awesome.
Dan, come on, you silly little meme boy.
the
Anthony
voices
says,
drop out halfway through the game.
Anthony says, okay, I'm going to say it. All generation have been waiting for this moment. God of War 2018 is to the PS4 what The Last of Us was for the PS3, a generation-defining game.
And it could be.
Also, do you guys think, well, you seem pretty open to that idea, Dan. Based on your eye rolls.
I am super. Okay, but again, everything I say is
I
from
know.
a point of
Okay,
ignorance because
got it.
I haven't played the second half.
Oh, we got that part all right. Also, do you guys think
Wow.
that we'll see every realm in the game before it's out? I'm assuming since it's a two-part game club, we're about, 40% of the way, 35% of the way through? We've only been to 2. You think they'll save Asgard for the sequel? No!
No.
I don't know,
I
but-
was gonna say. I was
I
gonna say
think there's
no.
no way.
We're not gonna see all those worlds. But I
think
think
there's no way.
I think what Kyle said about going back and doing sort of like these little combat arenas, make me think that all those things are just kind of like smaller scale activities that you do in the post game. It's just like, oh yeah, if you like
Oh.
this particular realm is this challenge, and so
okay.
and maybe they go back to those
There's a
realms.
boss fight in
oth-
one of them.
right? So like Kyle had sort of made me rethink where I stood on that.
Yeah. I know on the
Good
cover
job,
story
Kyle.
trip, Joe and I talked a lot about, like, how are they going to divide this up? Is this game going to be Midgard only, and then you're going to go to Asgard in the sequel? But at this point, I'm feeling like there's no way around
Yeah.
it. We have to go to Asgard.
I would say like the two, like besides Alfheim, I think that's going to be like the last area is just going to be
Yes.
Asgard.
I don't think we
I
do.
think so too. You don't think we do?
I don't think we do.
Wow.
Asgard's
Okay.
probably
Mark
not.
it down.
This, I mean, we'll see, but this really does feel
Too
like
big
they're
in
building
scope.
up to like a singular story. In the same
It
way,
feels that
God
way.
of War 1 was very much a singular story, and then 2 planted the seeds for like a bigger story.
Right.
I think that's the case here. God of
Yeah.
War 1 is a very singular story with a Death Star destroyed at the end,
Yes.
and then maybe the sequels will open up some new avenues.
Every
for us to
mythology,
explore.
man.
the
even Star
problem,
Wars.
the problem with that
Yeah,
is
right.
if we go to Asgard,
Joseph Campbell here.
then we have because that means we kill the whole Norse.
You don't have to
pantheon
kill
in one game. We deal with the entire Greek Norse pantheon in one
You don't
game.
think Odin's the final boss?
I don't.
I think he is.
All right,
Dan, going to the mat.
we're there. We're on the
I
mat.
don't think Odin is the final boss.
Interesting.
I think it's
Andrew,
Faye.
I think Odin would be an amazing final boss, but I don't think
Atreus
it's
would be
him.
the most amazing final boss.
Oh, that would be really no.
By the end of the game, is Atreus going to be flying around as a god?
A little storm cloud.
Yeah, a storm cloud.
No, I don't think
with
so.
a little staff that extends.
That's
With
right.
a little staff.
I'm into this.
Andrew Vala writes in. He wrote in a lot, but a lot of good feedback. It should be Andrew Valhalla.
Oh, hey!
Holy cow, I
Get
did
the
it!
get the Valkyries out here.
He says, we're now halfway through the game, and I've yet to see either Dwarf Brother or the Witch in the same location. Of particular note, the second time we meet the Witch, we pass 2 locations where we recently spoke with both Dwarven brothers who are both mysteriously absent. I call shenanigans. Could each of these characters be, in fact, the same person? Old Kratos is being hustled, and I'm guessing the prime suspect is Loki. If we really want to get really crazy, we didn't see the mom burned into ashes. Could the mom be yet another face of this dire conspiracy? Before you accuse me of writing bad fanfiction, let me remind you, according to Nordic legend, Loki is known for turning himself into a horse, becoming pregnant, giving birth to the 8-legged horse Sleipnir. This is not without precedent, sheeple.
No,
Didn't we?
I-
see the mother?
This is
Right.
setting me up for disappointment. There's no way that the twist at the end or whatever is that good. But if it is, it'll be awesome.
I think we absolutely do not get this game without seeing Loki, and you got to have. The
And
big
Loki
names.
has to do some shape-shifty nonsense. So what's he going to be?
He's the pig.
I think
the pig.
We're carrying him the whole
Oh,
way.
hang on. There's a really good.
He's the pig.
Oh, there was someone wrote in with this amazing email, which is such a good point. Oh, I need to go find it. Hang on. Talk amongst yourselves.
All right. So
I think the best is he's the shopkeepers. And like that whole thing was going to be like a trick of like I just wanted to keep an eye on
I
you.
think that
I don't
they-
think it's tied
No,
in
no,
with
no.
the witch.
It's nothing to do with like the shopkeepers are only there one at a time because the PS4 isn't powerful enough to process both of them. Like,
Are you saying
There's
Loki
only
is the
3
PS4
characters.
processor?
Only 3
blast
characters can
processing.
be on screen at a time.
It's almost like games are a magic trick developers pull on us.
I mean,
man.
we think it's magic.
you might think it's
but,
magic, but
That's true.
okay, it's magic.
all right, it's magic.
Did we see the mother get burned? I
we
mean,
have
was
this
there
email?
any confusion about that? I mean, we didn't see
No.
her face. She was in a sack or something.
Yeah, I'm not
right?
gonna go as forget the conspiracy theory about that. I'm pretty sure the mom is dead.
Yeah,
I just don't think we have the identity of the mother, and that's supposed to.
And
sleep.
she still has a part to play, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I can't
It's
find this
Zeus.
email. This is very
Zeus is the
disappointing.
mother.
There's so
it
many
could
great
be.
emails. So what someone mentioned is they haven't said the word Kratos yet.
What?
Well, because who would call him Kratos?
Exactly.
Dad. Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
That is
I
weird.
mean, he hasn't like formally introduced himself to anybody, so nobody knows his name.
Hello, dragon.
Are you
My
sure?
name is Kratos.
Are we sure about that? I haven't.
I don't think
I wasn't
so.
paying
The witch
attention,
doesn't
so.
say it. I mean,
Balder probably would have been the most likely candidate to have said it,
right.
right? But I don't think
So
so.
you think that
Craters.
you don't play as Kratos in this game? Is that what you're?
That's
what
right.
about
I
the
think
witch?
it's Loki. Loki is
the-
Kratos.
What about
the whole time?
Did the witch say his name?
No, she like implies that like you're a long way from home, or
All right.
whatever she says.
Could
But
be Kratos' brother. He's still kicking around somewhere.
So that the part where he like looks at his arms for the blades of chaos, that was for our benefit of just like he's acting for us.
right. Well, you remember he winked at the camera?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And you can make him smile in any of the with the photo mode.
Yeah. Jimmy Bedell says the 2 times Kratos reached to put his hand on the boy's shoulder, had to pull back. He really loved it. And their relationship overall, like how boy is so mad at him after he gets sucked in the light and hell film, blah, 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 blah. My wife and I are speculating on some things about their past. Like maybe he's not really Kratos' son. But the fact that I'm so invested in this story that I'm constantly talking my non-gamer wife's ear off is so awesome. And I'm glad to, I'm a dad to 3 boys. So some of that hits home emotionally.
Boys.
That's
Trying to
interesting.
hide your
idea.
past. Yeah.
That is an adopted kind of.
Now I believe that it was confirmed. I think Balrog tweeted
Barlog.
that it was indeed his biological son.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that I remember seeing that conspiracy like weeks before the game came out.
Okay.
That is interesting. So no shenanigans?
That's
Just
I think there's some potential for shenanigans.
I think there's going to be shenanigans, but I think it is also his biological
Kratos is
son.
a guy who's up for some shenanigans.
So,
Yeah.
okay, I love, by the way, I haven't thanked you guys enough for stopping to play the game for GI Game Club.
It has
Really
been
appreciate it.
painful waiting to get back to
yeah,
that.
it's
And
fucked up that you made us do that.
Ah, great.
Yeah,
Let's
now you
keep
got to
some-
write that down. Write down that
Oh,
profanity.
all right. Jesus.
You
Oh, my
Oh,
God. Kyle, I've never seen you take your anger out on the world in such a gross,
This is
pervy
the
way.
angriest I think.
especially
Kratos is rubbing
Kratos.
off on you in a way I don't like, Kyle.
Just messing over there.
just for this game club specifically, because like we do know there's lots of stuff coming, and like
Yes.
I'm
I think it's fun to be in
maybe
the
I'll
dark,
eat my
right?
hat
Yeah, it
next
is.
week.
Okay, so let's go. Final boss. Kyle.
Final boss?
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't know. Odin? I really don't.
Okay.
I think
All right.
the thing is like final boss isn't really something I'm thinking about because I'm more interested in the relationship between Atreus and Kratos and where that ends. Like the end of wherever their
Where does
story
that
ends.
end?
Is more, it's not like, oh, what's the end boss? It's like, where are they at the end of this
Where are
game?
they at the end of this game?
Yes.
Where are they at the end of this game?
Where are they at the end of this game? They've completed their mission, and Atreus learns of his father's past, and he basically he has to come to terms with the fact that he's half god. I think.
And then it's like, we've got a lot of training to do.
Kind of, yeah.
We got a bigger threat to deal with.
And then you get a like My Neighbor Totoro style credit sequence where you're kind of like seeing where
Totoro.
the happy ending
Yeah.
for everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
Every
all right.
mythology, man.
Seems okay. Do we think there's
around
going to
the
be
horn?
the moment, the equivalent of like the smart pistol moment in Titanfall 2, right? And I know, Kyle, you're tight. But is there going to be that moment where it's like, okay, this is serious. Here are the Blades of Chaos.
For what everybody
Blades
has
of
said,
Chaos.
yeah, the second half is going to be a lot crazier. So
I
I'm
don't-
looking forward to that.
I don't think
Do you think
we'll-
Blades of Chaos 100%, Dan?
Not 100. I don't know that.
I don't
Okay.
think so because I think this game is trying to separate itself from the original trilogy. as
Yeah,
much
I
as
would say.
possible.
I would say
That would be awesome for me, but you guys would not care about that.
No.
I think the last boss is either going to be one of those, like what Kyle said, like sort of like a denouement moment where it's just like, you know, like the last thing isn't like it's just a set piece or a narrative set piece.
Sacrifice, maybe.
Either that or like 4 Draugrs.
That's going to be a
Four
troll.
Draugrs?
got 4 Jogger!
Four trolls, one after another, all up
You
different
wouldn't
elements.
believe it. Any other bold predictions about where it's going? The
Baldur's going to be the final boss.
Baldur prediction.
You really think that?
Yeah.
And his gate.
It's been set up the entire
He's gonna be like a
time.
Voss
Yeah.
situation.
I think
take
he's
care of him
boss as
before
well.
the
I
end.
think he's
think
like
you
3
fight
fours.
Thor.
Not only because
I think it's Thor.
I think you
I
fight
honestly
Thor.
think it's Thor.
it's Baldur because not only because of what the game is set up, but also because of the implications in Norse mythology of Baldur's
What is
death.
it, Dan?
That'll
Just
kick
say
off.
it, it's
It'll
fine.
kill, Ragnarok.
So when Baldur goes down, that's
That's the only
Ragnarok.
way this game can. This is a God of War game, right? And
Yeah.
I haven't played all of them, but they're crazy, right?
That's
so we got to do
interesting.
Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
an interesting
it's
idea.
you kill some of the gods, you make peace, you go back home, and then it's like the threat on the distance for the future of God of War in this setting, at least, is like Ragnarok's coming.
I think it's a post-credit scene where it's just like, all right, this storyline is resolved,
know.
everything's okay, and at the end it's just like Ragnarok.
I'm also not against the idea, or I think there's a 50% chance of it happening, of them like opening the doors even further, and it's like, hey, look at that Mayan adventure we're going to be having
I'd
in the
love it.
future.
Let's do
Yeah.
a Mayan
Yeah,
It's
adventure.
Ganesh.
Do you think?
Let's do that one. I'd love to
Maybe
do
not.
that
Never
one.
mind. We changed our minds.
Do you think Kratos and Thor will have like a weapon throwing contest and be like, "Oh, is that how yours work? This is how mine works."
I don't think so, because a big thing that Corey Barlog on the Cover Story trip emphasized is he wouldn't confirm if Thor was in the game, but he's like, a lot of people have misconceptions about Thor. He was actually a huge prick in the old Mist. Like he's
Yeah.
just this
all
arrogant
were.
piece
Yeah,
of
he's not
work.
Chris
They all
Hemsworth.
were.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some good side quests that
Yeah.
go into Thor being an
Oh,
asshole.
good. Hey, thank you so much to absolutely everybody that emailed into podcast@gameinformer.com. I think we should crank this sucker out for the next episode. What do you guys think?
1 week.
What do you mean by
Yes,
cranking
please.
it
I
up?
want
talking
to
full
go home
bare
and play
naked
tonight.
ladies.
Okay.
Okay, next episode of this game club covering the rest of the game. It will air on May 3rd? Oh, well, May's coming up
Oh.
fast, everybody.
Oh God.
All right, May 3rd.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
You feel like we can
1
do
week,
it?
right?
I think so.
I will do my best.
I'll do it.
Thank you to everybody that emailed in. You're all heroes. Thank you to every editor at this table that took the time out of their busy lives and stopped for the sake of speculation about the future. I am so thankful you guys did that. I think it makes for a better game club. So
I
thank you
agree.
so much.
I know I seemed really angry earlier. but
Everyone's been
it's a good
angry
episode.
in the office.
And also, when the
But-
second half of the game rocks, I apologize for not saying it was the best game of all time.
That's right. Okay, send in your thoughts on the second half of the game. Also, thank you to everybody for not spoiling the end of the game in the email section.
That's a lot to
Podcast@gameinformer.com.
ask. Thank you.
Nobody-
I read
nobody
every
sent
one.
you a spoiler?
No one.
Wow,
Isn't that
that's-
crazy?
You're going to get him now,
incredible.
though.
Well, yeah, but hopefully
He'll
I
be
can
done.
rush to the game and figure it out. Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version and listen to new episodes airing every Thursday. We cover big games on the horizon, games that we've just reviewed. We have long-form developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So check it out every Thursday.